It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody's gabagool doing? It is Sunday night, June 1st, 2025. Please let me know if you hear my air conditioner, because it is hot as a motherfucker in this room right now. So if it's loud, I'll turn it off and I'll sweat my balls off. No one says they hear it. Thank God. How's everybody doing? Oof, boy. I honestly, listen, Sunday nights are your show. With the exception of the open, I sit back, I talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. It's kind of the lazy show. Don't have to prepare a whole boatload of news. But sometimes things happen that you have to talk about. And, originally I thought, okay, we'll have some fun with Johnny the Rat, John Laurinaitis, something that we saw a mile away. And somebody asked me over the weekend, they said, DT, crazy prediction. I said, well, what does a crazy prediction mean? Something that I know is not going to come true, or just you want me to give you some wild shit? Like just something wild. And I said, you know what? Wouldn't it be something if John Laurinaitis and Janelle Grant become an item? And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but why would Janelle Grant want to align with someone who assaulted her in that way? It never doubted her that this was anything but John Laurinaitis having fun for himself. But now with John Laurinaitis divorced and Janelle Grant, as far as I know, not involved with anybody, wouldn't that be something that it was fate? John Laurinaitis, they obviously liked each other's company. They had lots of breakfast together. Hey, that's better than some of the dopey analysis floating around in the, podcast land, especially those who used to be in the wrestling business that are no longer. Man, some horrible takes over the weekend. But, obviously the big topic of discussion, it's not even 12 hours old. A little sneak preview of tomorrow's thumbnail. Miss me yet? This isn't your uncle's WWE anymore. And, I think back to last year, when we first started hearing about TKO, or even more, a year and a half ago, TKO buying WWE, or Endeavor and then forming TKO, UFC, the deal. And this sounds like a broken record, but a lot of you used to ask me, DT, what do I think is going to change? Like, what do I think on camera we're going to see different? And I said, I don't think you're going to see much of a visual change, because fans like something that they're used to. They don't like extreme change. If it's not broken, you don't fix it. So I didn't think anything on camera was going to be drastically different. Yeah, we got the advertisers now and everything like that. But I said this over a year and a half ago, and Kev used to say it as well, that, you look at the template of UFC and you look at the mindset of Endeavor, and there was never a doubt in our minds that slowly Endeavor would turn WWE into the UFC template. Less shows, more money, making it, almost out of the reach financially for a lot of fans out there. But not only that, the one thing that we kept saying over and over again, and everybody else ignored it. And listen, let's be honest, everybody else ignored it. Ari Emanuel, the Endeavor board of directors, none of those people were from the wrestling business. And say what you want about Vince McMahon being out of touch and Vince McMahon not having the pulse on wrestling anymore. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. But at the end of the day, everybody answered to a wrestling person. And as long as Triple H had that power and was also dealing with a wrestling person, you had the wrestling mindset, always there. Now with Vince out of there, we said all along, stop getting mad at Triple H. Triple H is working for TKO. Triple H has the authority and the power to do creative, but I in no way, shape, or form believe that this was Triple H's decision to let R-Truth go. Now, listen, the wrestling world today, if we're honest, the wrestling world today is acting as if Ron Killings passed away. The tributes online from the wrestling world and wrestling fans is unreal. He's still alive, and he's still healthy, and he still can entertain us. But unfortunately, TKO felt his services were no longer needed. You would think in all of the annoyances that wrestling fans have endured this year and a lot of the dissatisfaction towards WWE in so many ways, from the business side to creative to other stuff, and especially with a lot of people not happy with AEW either, because the promotion is to please, an autistic billionaire son. You please him first. Everybody else comes second, whether you like it or not. So you would think, all right, R-Truth is not the beginning, the middle, and the end of WWE television, but you get a little laughter out of it, brightens up your day a little bit. It's like having a bad day. You get up in the morning, it's that time of the month, or you get up in the morning and, just everything goes wrong. Your shirt has a giant crease on it. You're late for work. You bend down to tie your shoes and your ass cheeks, the ass area of your pants rip. You go outside the house, you fall on your face. You go to the office, you're dealing with assholes all day. You're just having a crappy day. Everything all day long sucks. And you go home, 5 o'clock at night. You miss this, you miss that. And you open the door, and there's your significant other or your doggy or your cat just wagging their tail, just happy to see you, and all the aggravation is forgotten for a little while. That's kind of what R-Truth was on a lot of these shows. R-Truth in no way, shape, or form could be commanding that kind of coin. When everybody is doing the sarcastic, TKO, you're getting record profits, but yet you're still letting people go. Yes, I am having espresso, double espresso. And I got my water too. It's not a money situation. It's a mindset. And that mindset of paying someone a halfway decent salary and only wrestling a couple of times, to them is not worth it. They feel you're not going to lose any wrestling fans if R-Truth is not on the television. And that's probably true. But you would think that there's room for someone that is not demanding insane amounts of money, who is a personality, who you can have work as a producer, work as a coach, find something in the WWE that he could do, and you have him work a match once in a blue moon. This guy's going to be 85 years old. Remember what I said 2 weeks ago? Anybody remember what I said about the coffin? I said, R-Truth, something tells me the day he dies, they're going to bury him. What did I say? 20 years later, somebody's going to dig him up thinking that he's got gold teeth or something. They're going to steal his shit. They're going to open the coffin. They're going to be like, he looks the same. We said that 2 weeks ago. R-Truth, it's amazing. The shape he keeps himself in, but more importantly, the personality, the friend, the locker room leader, the person who brightens up everybody's day. That's not easy to replace. And there ain't no way you're going to replace R-Truth. There is nobody. There is nobody. So, listen, I'm not using this to start shit. But if you've paid attention to my shows, we have been singling out a lot of people out there that like to say some knowledge that gets a lot of press, that sounds like it makes sense, but when you dissect it, you're like, what's this person talking about? You could seek out the podcasters that get a whole bunch of exposure tonight. Oh, R-Truth is one of those people that if you need someone last minute to work a house show, he's your guy. Well, I decided to do a little research. Do you know the last time R-Truth wrestled a singles match on a house show? Almost 2 years ago, more than a year and a half ago. He did a couple when he was with Miz as the tag team champion. And they were facing, I think, JD McDonough and somebody else. R-Truth usually is not used on a house show. Putting that aside, though, how is this guy not someone you want around your company? Young wrestlers want a little advice. He's a leader. Somebody that's just having a really bad, this guy could fit so many roles behind the scenes in the WWE. It makes no sense to me. I have a prediction. Not even an opining. I mean, my what I've been doing since 1997, for the most part, is opine. I give you my opinions. But this is more of a prediction. My prediction is that he gets rehired by the WWE in more of a producer, trainer, that position, but still occasional on-air personality, or maybe something else was offered to him and he's just not ready to turn in those wrestling boots. No matter how old he is, maybe he still feels he could do a little bit more. That's the only thing I could come up with, because this is baffling. Braun Strowman, okay? Here's a little tidbit. And I may sound very intelligent here, but the only reason why I remember half of this is from doing a history show this year. When you look back at Braun Strowman and his WWE career, that guy, and this is not shade on him, but that guy was injury prone a hell of a lot more than you think. And not only that, before he was released the first time, he was out a good year. They brought him back and he was again out for a good year. He is more injury prone than you think, and he commands a premium salary. He commanded a high salary, and that's why when he was let go the first time, Vince McMahon was quoted by several people that, he was 2 years past his prime. And listen, nobody's job is safe. Nobody's job is safe. We've been saying that for a while. Be concerned about anybody that seems like they're stuck in the mud. Be concerned about anybody, no matter how well liked they are. I saw a lot of people tonight, they're very concerned about Bayley. Now listen, I'm not trying to spark any rumors. It would not surprise me in the least if Bayley ultimately got released. Because when you look at the mindset of TKO and Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro, even Nick Khan, Do you honestly think, even though Nick Khan loves wrestling and Nick Khan seems a very likable person, unless you're in AEW, do you think Nick Khan is going to turn around and lobby for someone to stay on the payroll because they're well-liked? No, at the end of the day, I've been saying this for 15 plus years. WWE answers first to the shareholders, the stockholders, the investors. That's who they answer to first and foremost. Yes, they answer to fans as well, but they have to please the investors first. And the investors do not care how much we like R-Truth. The investors do not care how much we like Bayley. The investors do not care how much someone is a locker room leader. And please, again, I need to say it for the, slower people out there. I have nothing to say that Bayley is being let go. I'm just using it as an example because people today have mentioned her name numerous times. No one is safe. No one is safe. It's business. And it sucks. It absolutely sucks. Will I still watch WWE because R-Truth was released? Of course. Of course. But when you just look at both sides of the coin here, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Unless we find out later on that he was demanding way too much money. I've never heard that. 1 second, guys. It started getting cold in here. So, listen, are we going to miss R-Truth? Of course. I see people saying, oh, how cool would it be that he walks into AEW and he sees Goldust and he sees Edge and he sees all these former WWE people and he still thinks he's in a WWE. Yeah, that's funny for 1 week. And then what? And then what? What do you do with R-Truth? Personally, I think R-Truth, if WWE does not bring him back in a different capacity, I think the best fit for him is to go to TNA. I think the best fit for him is to go to TNA. It's kind of like, it's obviously a big step down, but there's so many things that he can do in TNA that would have a lot more sensibility than going to AEW, in my honest opinion. I don't want to see R-Truth go to AEW and be a comedy act because unfortunately there's too many people behind the scenes that are not going to laugh at the comedy act. They're going to be like, oh, this is an awesome opportunity to get my ass over even more as a heel and just destroy the motherfucker. You're not going to put him on TV as a commissioner. Logic would have told you that AEW needed like a commissioner or a GM type role for years now. I love when they first started, Cody Rhodes says, no, we won't do a GM. Everybody knows that a GM is not real. Cody, with all due respect, every match that you do is predetermined entertainment. We truly know that when MJF is feuding with Chris Jericho at Stadium Stampede, we know that they actually do not hate each other. Even though we didn't need the Jacksonville Jaguars coach to send us a picture online of them hanging out. As we covered in a history show yesterday, when Mike Tyson showed up in AEW and threatened to beat the shit out of Chris Jericho, we didn't need Henry Cueto to show us film in the back of Mike Tyson and Chris Jericho laughing it up right after the segment. We know what wrestling is. So when you hear stupid shit like that, oh, we don't need a GM because fans know a GM really doesn't have authority. Everything about wrestling is suspension of disbelief. What the fuck you talking about? But they won't give in to that. So, listen, I'm going to miss R-Truth in doing WWE stuff. It's no secret. Something changed last year in the WWE. Something changed last year. And a lot of people feel it. I even saw on social media earlier today, somebody post, do you notice that this year WWE does not celebrate Black History Month? They don't celebrate Gay Pride Month. They don't celebrate this. They don't celebrate that. And here's a little tidbit for anybody that is bored and wants to do this. If you go on Google do an advanced Twitter search, advanced X search. Just type in the word celebrates and then look on the WWE's X account. You will find nothing since around fall of last year. No, it's not because Trump is in office or this was happening before Trump ever became president. This is before the election too. The only thing I could put my finger on was something that we talked about on the history show last week. I don't remember the man's name, but if you remember the history show last week, we talked about TKO bringing aboard or promoting a certain person. I will get their name and I will let you know tomorrow. But this person was in charge with handling WWE and UFC. Not just live events, but more. And it feels like ever since they made those strategic moves a little over a year ago, or around a year ago, all this has been kicking into gear. Because people were saying earlier, well, TKO owned it last year, but something changed around the summertime of last year. And, I don't know if there's any simple answer to it, but one thing I will say, the little bit of enjoyment that wrestling fans in the wrestling world, the people in the business can all agree upon, and you let R-Truth go. It's baffling to me. Guy didn't have to have matches anymore. Not every single person needs to be inside the wrestling ring. It was funny. I'll use this for now. And I'm sorry for using this to shit on Pat McAfee for a minute, but I think this is a good way I could explain this. All right. Shout out to Tommy D, who sent this earlier. Thoughts on the MSG owner, James Dolan. I think James Dolan owns the Knicks too, for not comping Pat McAfee a ticket to the Knicks Game 5, and that Pat refused to buy the ticket at $70,000. I didn't even know about this story until you sent this earlier, so I did a little digging quickly before the show. This is how I look at it as far as Pat McAfee goes, and this sort of has to do with R-Truth, okay? Pat McAfee is making almost $20 million a year with ESPN. It's like $17 million a year. WWE's got to be paying him a good $3 to $5 million a year. The guy is, working, every week, almost every week. Let's say $3 million. Let's be very, very conservative. So Pat McAfee is making more than $20 million a year, plus his merch and everything else and revenue and his podcast, $25 million a year. Could we all agree about $25 million a year? I saw the video of Pat McAfee said he wasn't going to spend $70,000 to watch the Knicks game at the Garden. And this is a man making $25 million a year. So let's take a zero. Let's take a zero off of both. So now let's say he's making $2.5 million a year and the Knicks ticket costs $7,000. Let's take another zero off. Pat McAfee is making $250,000 a year and the Knicks ticket was $700. Let's take one more zero off. Let's say Pat McAfee was making $25,000 a year and the Knicks ticket was $70. Could that motherfucker afford it? So when you see people like that, I'm not spending $70,000. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're making $25 million a year, and he couldn't wait because I saw the clip after Tommy posted this super. He put this big clip. Knicks owner refuses Pat McAfee a ringside ticket. You fucking kept saying that the Pacers were going to win. I wouldn't let you in the fucking building. And then to turn around and say that tickets are $70,000. Something tells me if your daughter wanted to go to Taylor Swift and the ticket was $70,000, you'd fucking run with those bad knees and everything. You'd run to buy the fucking ticket. So when you see money being pissed away like that, and you see them really, really, really getting Scrooge-like by not having someone like R-Truth in that company. I mean, R-Truth is beloved, and I'm not saying this to be a dick. Unless R-Truth is the biggest fucking moron around for real in real life, which I don't believe in a second that he is, how do you not find things for him to do behind the scenes? How is he not qualified to be an agent, be a producer, do TV on occasion? How much money could that possibly command? That is fucking ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So, that's my take. And honestly, guys, I think when we saw the return of little Jimmy Friday, I think that's kind of like a little telltale sign. WWE really didn't have much more for this guy to do. It was like, okay, let him have the match with John Cena. Let him get that final opportunity for all of everything he's done. And that was his go away. That was his go away. So another person, before we get into your questions. Oh, and we do have to talk about Camille for a minute. We have to talk about Camille. We definitely have to talk about how AEW is, it's kind of funny how she keeps getting swept under the rug by so many people. I hear about Mariah May now, which we'll get into a little bit later. But before we do that, just quickly. Can't say we didn't tell you. There was rumors that Carlito was on the chopping block for a while. If you remember when Carlito was going to be going, I think, Puerto Rico this weekend, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. And, there was some buzz. But I tell you, and I mean this totally sincere. Carlito, the running joke that Kev and I used to say on the show, miss you, Kev, and you all know this year. We used to talk over and over that how is Carlito getting that kind of money, and he's basically just a comedy, like a live plant on WWE television. We joked for the last year or so that, wow, give him credit. That fucking guy is getting paid really, really well, and, just getting his ass kicked on occasion, just being like almost like comedy also. So when Carlito revealed today that WWE is letting him go after 2 weeks, his contract is up in 2 weeks, and WWE said, we're not going to offer you a new deal. So Carlito will officially be gone in 2 weeks. And Carlito went up on social media today, give this guy credit. He was joking, obviously, but he said that WWE tried to tell him that he had to pay all the money back that he was being paid the last year because they felt he was stealing the money from them. You get it? He hasn't earned it. He's been stealing the money. And he joked that he talked to his lawyers and this and that. But obviously Carlito was very aware online that a lot of people felt you're paying this kind of money to this guy and he's doing next to nothing. Carlito was very entertaining. I tell you the truth. I think Carlito probably would do great in TNA. See, I think in AEW, he would have to put on over-the-top matches. I'm not saying he has to do, stuff out of his element, but I almost feel like Carlito would need to have 3.5-star matches in order to work out well in AEW. I don't see that being a fit. I think he goes back to the Caribbean or maybe TNA. I don't know. I don't know what you do with Carlito. I don't know if you put him with AAA. I don't think that's a fit either. By the way, El Hijo del Viqueño did beat Alberto El Patron for the Mega Championship. So bye-bye, Alberto. Bye-bye. Still remember wrestling purists and a whole bunch of people saying that Alberto was the first person that WWE signed after they made the deal with AAA. Your ass that they did. As funny when you didn't see Alberto on the overall When Worlds Collide banner. That should have been a telltale sign. If Alberto did not know until yesterday that he was dropping the belt, all he had to do is look at the Worlds Collide poster and look at the graphic last week, and he should have been looking in the mirror and saying, "Self, yeah, your future don't look too bright right now." So, listen, Carlito was fun. Was he needed? If we're being honest, no. I mean, likable guy, got along with everybody, did whatever he was told. And I don't think you could ask anything more for that. But that was someone that, I wonder if WWE valued his reaction in Puerto Rico a little bit too high. Remember, when they went to Puerto Rico, and Savio Vega came out, got that insane reaction, and Carlito, everybody else came out, got insane reactions. I wonder if WWE overestimated, his value. So now WWE just feels, that he's not needed anymore. Now the question is, he's got 2 weeks left. Do you put him back on television tomorrow? Or do you just suddenly have him off TV and do something stupid where JD McDonough is looking around and he's like, something feels different. Something feels different. I can't put my finger on it. And then maybe in the background, you have somebody playing the video game as Carlito. So, listen, thank you, Carlito, for entertaining us as well. But, that's, contract that we were kind of surprised at. When he's in phenomenal condition, I think when they first brought him back, we thought he was going to do so much more in the ring. And then he did do some stuff in the ring, and people like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Something's not adding up here. We thought he was lazy. Remember early on, many of us thought that he was coming off as lazy on WWE television. So, all right. For a brief moment, then we'll get into everybody's questions, comments, super chats, everything. I definitely need to get into this for a minute, because this is a topic that we've talked about a few times in the last couple of months. No one else seems to be talking about it. I did see that somebody asked, I think, Conan's podcast the other day, if Camille's in the doghouse because she overestimated or she lied about how much interest WWE had in her and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, if you watch that clip, nothing against Disco, they were fine. But basically, they really don't know either. But here's the thing. I have been talking about Camille for at least 4 months now. 4 or 5 months. And I'm totally baffled why Camille is not on AEW television. So now, I think this is a case where Tony Khan signed her so she wouldn't sign with WWE. And she is obviously being ghosted. So she's been in the company and I want everybody to understand this. And shame on all of you AEW analysts out there, and shame on all of you people out there that realized, I could shit on AEW and make a whole lot of ad revenue over it, where for 3-4 years, every time somebody made a criticism about AEW, we were all told we were mentally retarded. Shame on all of you out there that have ignored the Camille situation. All right. I think it's about time that we call it what it is. And if you see, I wrote, Deanna, you're next. Remember, early on, we nailed it about Dax Harwood until Dax Harwood, obviously sold himself, which is fine. He's got a family. But you remember we called Andrade. We called several people. Malachi Black, remember Public Enemy number 1, 2, 3, and 4? Those were CM Punk, Malachi Black, Andrade, and Dax Harwood. And all 4 was getting that kind of treatment. And Dax is the only one that kind of sold himself, whether you like it or not. I mean, you remember the day that he canceled this podcast, that was the turning point. But when I wrote, Deanna, you're next, oh, I see this a mile away. I want to share with you some facts about Camille in AEW. And this is going to be kind of surprising to all of you out there. She's been in that company now since about February of last year. So she's been in there about 16 months, okay? 1 year and 4 months. She's been in that company. She has not wrestled a match since October 30th of last year. You know, people say, oh, well, there was injury. Oh, they were filming Queen of the Ring. She hasn't had a match in 2025. She has disappeared off of television. Some media person asked Tony Khan about Camille a little over a month ago, and Tony Khan gave the same fucking generic excuse that he says about Ricky Stark, that he said about Ray Fierce, he said about everybody in the past, and the media just lets him go. Instead of the media saying, hey, what's going on with Camille? Do you think she'll be back on TV soon? How's about instead of saying something like that, like a month ago, you say something like this? Hey, Tony, you know, I was looking at Camille's stats. He loves stats, right? Hey, Tony, I was looking at Camille's stats and she signed her almost 16 months ago. She hasn't wrestled since October of last year. And not only that, her wins, she has had a total of 5 singles matches. In 16 months, she's had a total of 5 singles matches. The last match she had on Dynamite, she lost to Chris Statlander. Okay? I want you to think about this, guys. She was the NWA Women's Champion for 813 days straight. When she came into AEW, she had just come off an 813-day reign as NWA Women's Champion. She goes to AEW. Do you have any idea who she has defeated in AEW? I want you to hear these names. July 31st. Oh, yeah, actually, no, I will go out of place. We're getting to the best part. Her first match was July 31st of last year. She defeated Brittany Jade. Nothing against these women, but not the prime roster. Brittany Jade. She then fought on Dynamite August 7th and won a handicap match. Ooh. She beat 2 women. She defeated Clara Carter and Jasmine How? On Rampage, September 11th, 2024, she defeated Robin Renegade. On October 2nd of last year, on Rampage, she defeated Zoe Lynn. And Dynamite, October 23rd of last year, she defeated Queen Aminata. Those were her wins. Tony, Camille, coming off of 813 days as NWA Women's Champion, signed 16 months ago, and her victories have been against Queen Aminata, Zoe Lynn, Robin Renegade, Jasmine How, Clara Carter, Brittany Jade. She hasn't been on TV. She hasn't had a match since October of last year. Why is that? But yet they're signing Hekla or Shukula, whatever it is. They sign all these other people. And she can't get on TV. They do Queen of the Ring. And you would think for a little extra publicity, you kind of like celebrate that she was in the movie, give her a little bit of nothing, 0. So if you want an idea of where I think everything went south with Camille and AEW, get a load of this. A lot of people forgot about this. It's a year ago this week. 1 year ago this week, somebody had written on Twitter about Camille's 813-day reign as women's champion. So Camille writes, and this was exactly on June 6th, because I will be covering it this week. Camille goes on Twitter, June 6th, 2024, a month before they finally put her on TV. And she says, on June 6, 2021, I was crowned NWA Women's World Champion. I held that title for 813 days. One of the longest reigning women's champions of all time. Now, I wait patiently for my time to start from the bottom and prove myself all over again. Somebody joked with her and said, will we have to wait 813 days before we see that day? And she said, quote, at this point, it may be a possibility. She deleted that tweet right after it, but the damage was already done. She was signed in February of last year, February, March, April, May, and now June of 2024. She wasn't even used. So she reaches the anniversary of winning the NWA Women's Champion, celebrates it, and she says, I'm waiting patiently. And fans are like, what the fuck? Hopefully she don't have to wait 813 days, and then deletes it. And then she finally makes a debut on TV a month later, and AEW gives her Brittany Jade, Clara Carter, Jasmine Howe, Robin Renegade, Zoe Lynn, and Queen Aminata. Doesn't it seem like Tony Khan just realized, nah, she ain't for me. I bought this fucking big toy, and I have no interest in it anymore. They had her be the lackey for Mercedes Moné, and then one day, I've had it. I'm done. And that was it. No revenge, no nothing. No nothing. Now we're in June. Now it makes no sense. She could come back at All In and fucking assassinate Mercedes Moné. Look, Tony, here, you keep your title. Don't matter no more. Don't matter anymore. So why do I say that Deonna is next? Well, all I'll tell you is that go check out Deonna's Twitter account if she hasn't deleted it as of yet. She is now expressing a little bit of frustration of how she is being used, or may I call misused. Now, she just did a beautiful thing. She was in New York City and walked, I believe, the new tower for charity, 9/11. And she did it with, I think, her husband. I think she is married now. And beautiful thing. But Deonna Purrazzo is starting to get ghosted. And now you see, the signings that AEW have done recently with other women on the roster. And where's the room for Camille? You look at the other women that they've brought in recently. I mean, Camille doesn't look special anymore. So, this is not good. And listen, if we're being honest, about 4 or 5 months ago, we were joking on the shows that Deonna and Taya Valkyrie, they look like two women that are going to a fucking nightclub every week. They were cutting these promos on Collision or wherever it was. And it was like, they come out dressed like really, really fancy. And it's like, it's not actually like doing anything. You look like two women that are dressing up as rats to go to a club. Did not come off well on television. And just because they're having squash matches doesn't feel like there's any. Does that feel like Camille had any momentum last year at all? So, for anybody out there that is questioning why Camille is not being used, hopefully I gave you an answer. Other than another podcast saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know how to take this thumbnail off. Hopefully that's part of it. It's funny. You watch. If she's still employed with AEW, you watch within the next 2 weeks. She magically pops up on TV. Okay. All right. Let's get into your questions. We're not going to make it a late night tonight because tomorrow is going to be a loaded show. We got a lot of news to get into. We're obviously going to talk more about some of the topics from tonight get some more information. Also, we got to see if anybody else is going to be released because I don't remember if it was last year, might have been 2-3 years ago, but WWE released a few people right after Mania. Then about a month later, they released a bunch more. So this might be the time where they're going to start releasing a few more people. So Daniel-san, it's been 4 years since he's been a member here. That is awesome, man. Thank you. He's been a member, so glad he liked one of my graphics and gave it a listen. And here's to another 4 years. Thank you for that, Daniel. I really appreciate it. And I did see your post earlier about some other names that should be concerned. Yeah, I think a lot of people should be concerned. You know, what's really, really bad, I don't want to name names, but what's really, really bad is that some people in the WWE have worked very, very hard on social media. You know where I'm going with this. They've worked very hard on social media to interact with fans and get the support behind them. And R-Truth already had that. R-Truth has been on social media, has built his brand, has been doing skits and segments and interacting with fans. I can't tell, and I'm not even just saying this, I can't tell you how many times my fucking wall would see a whole bunch of R-Truth praise. And then I look and I'm like, why is this all on my wall? And it says R-Truth retweeted, R-Truth retweeted, R-Truth retweeted, R-Truth liked, R-Truth liked. He interacts with everybody. And even he couldn't be saved. You know, I get it. His age, I get it. But still, that's a guy you know, not many people you think could have a lifelong job if they wanted it. That's one guy I think we all would have agreed that, you know, maybe he can't do it like he used to, but you got to find something for him. And they didn't. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. So thank you again, Daniel. Ray J's World feels TKO is going to like AAA and have WWE talent work non-AEW affiliated indies more. Look at Natalya. Yeah, I think Natalya is a great example of that. Natalya is an excellent example of that. You know, look, Sonya Deville, not Sonya Deville, Shayna Baszler worked GCW and a couple of the shows, and that did not save her job. You know, we joke about Natty. We have joked many times about Natty. And listen, she's in the Guinness World Records, most WWE matches. She has had her Hall of Fame career. I truthfully, deep down inside, I'm not saying this to be cruel, but I don't believe that she looks in the mirror and she says, yeah, I deserve title. I deserve this. I should be champion. I should be. I think a lot of that is said online because she wants the perception of her values to still be at a premium level. Because if you don't talk about those things and you don't feel those ways and you don't have other people saying, yeah, you should still be champion, then you come across as over the hill. You know, I think even Natty right now has got to be looking at this like, holy shit, if they could let R-Truth go, you know, they absolutely could let her go. I'm not saying now. Oh, I do have to say this. But, and I said, I'll add one more thing to what you just said, Ray J. I saw a few people online today writing this and saying something like, oh, how are they wording it? They were talking about R-Truth and they were saying, oh, I know what it was. R-Truth is the most decorated champion in wrestling history. He's held the 24/7 title more than 60 times. The most dedicated champion in wrestling history. Not WWE history, wrestling history. For the people out there that are younger, that are going around and saying R-Truth has held more titles than anybody else, Google Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler, I think, has had almost 150 or 160 championships in his career. So we want to celebrate R-Truth, but we don't need to over-exaggerate and make fictitious information to blow somebody up more than what they are. You don't need to do that. But for the people out there that are doing that right now, most of the people right now are very, very young, so they probably have no idea. But that's why you're supposed to do a little research before you make claims like that. As we used to say, he ain't gonna fuck you. That doesn't mean what it means, but people know what it means when I say it that way. One other thing, Ray J. We've been talking about NXT. And now you see when it comes to house shows, when it comes to Raw, when it comes to SmackDown, when it comes to AAA, even indies, some indies, WWE now says, okay, we could use NXT people. You know, Nick Khan said this a year ago. A lot of people don't remember this, but I always follow the business side of things. Nick Khan, outside of wrestling, at some conference a year ago, was saying how much he felt NXT could be a brand all by itself. Didn't just have to be developmental. And most people just wrote that off. Oh, well, he's a WWE guy. Of course he's got to say. No. You have Trick Williams now, the TNA World Champion. You have Javon Evans wrestling for AAA versus NXT event. You have NXT wrestlers on SmackDown, on Raw, doing house shows, winning speed titles, even though that title's nothing. So WWE is now, no one sits in catering anymore. You have to start listening what Mark Shapiro says. You have to start listening what Ari Emanuel says. You have to start listening what Nick Khan says, right? Yes, you listen to Triple H too, but Triple H is trying to be the baby face for the fans. You know, that's why when The Rock, God bless all of you that still believe this, but when The Rock had the confrontation, the WrestleMania 40 press conference, and Cody, went and slapped Rock and this and that, and you see the footage in the back, Rock saying to Triple H, you better fucking fix this. And then you have, I don't know, was it Vince Russo, Jeff Jarrett, a bunch of people. I think it's going to be Cody Rhodes and Triple H versus the Dwayne Johnson and someone else in a tag team match. I'm like, why don't you Google pacemakers? Triple H could lose 50 pounds. He could be jacked up. He could look in the greatest shape of his life. Doesn't mean his heart is any better. It's over. It's done. The heart is done. Triple H has got to be very, very careful. And people are still convinced that The Rock went rogue. The Rock went rogue against Triple H. They don't get along. Triple H didn't even mention Rock at the Hall of Fame because they're very, very smart and they know exactly what's going on social media. They are in tune with everything. Everything. This is their way of blurring the line without blurring the line. That's why, even worse, Triple H and The Rock recently saying, oh, what you see in the ring, everything is storyline. Those are just characters. That's why John Cena, his heel run is not working. The fans are still cheering him anyway because he's doing 95 conventions and everybody he interacts with, he's beautiful. He's wonderful. Everybody knows John Cena is still this amazing guy. And then right before everything happens, you have Rock. Remember, when he's in the ring, when anybody's in the ring, they're characters. Well, thank you. I'll remember that the next time Seth Rollins and CM Punk feud with each other. Thank you. I'll remember that the next time Drew McIntyre and CM Punk feud with each other. Thank you. I remember that anytime two people I'd say they truly hate each other, now they're going to do WWE Unreal. So we have to pay very, very close attention to what all these people say because they're not just being cheerleaders for WWE. They mean what they're saying. And you need to also remember, they're saying this to non-wrestling people. If they wanted to say it to Joe's wrestling podcast, that's one thing. You know, if you want to split hairs, 5 years ago, Shinsuke Nakamura was on a wrestling podcast promoting a WWE tour in Singapore. And they asked him, how many more years do you think you have left in this? And Shinsuke said, Ichiro Suzuki, beloved baseball player, he retired at 45. I will retire at 45. Guess how old Shinsuke Nakamura is right now? I'm not saying that he's going to retire, but I'm saying that people say things to wrestling-related shows and they get away with it. You have to pay attention to what all these people say outside of wrestling, because everything that they're saying right now is coming true. And that's why I'm not saying this to tout. That's why Kev and I, for years and years and years, if not decades, always paid attention to the business side of WWE, because now those two paths are crossing. You know, it's kind of like, how many times over the years did you hear somebody say, I don't care about the ratings. I watch wrestling because I like it. I don't care about the ratings. The ratings don't matter. Oh, yes, they do matter. Because when the ratings, and you're on a network that's a publicly traded company, and your investors start saying, well, you know, not for nothing, but, you know, WWE, the performance is not very good. Why do you think they're not on Fox anymore? Their ratings weren't half bad. Why weren't they on Fox anymore? Because Fox felt it's not profitable. They weren't getting the return that they thought they were. You know, so if that could happen, yeah, it could happen to any show out there. So, all right. Thank you for that. But no one now sits in catering. That's something else Nick Khan said a year ago. No one else sits in catering anymore. And that is true. That is true. Listen, I say things sometimes that are very unpopular. I don't wish any wrestler to be fired. But several names that were let go recently, we saw the writing on the wall. There were a few others that have not been released yet. Well, Carlito was one of them, but there were a few others. One just got seriously injured. And if we're being honest, why would that person have been able to sacrifice and get another year if they were doing next to nothing with them? So the injury may have bought that person a little bit of time. And I hope that person doesn't get released while they're injured. I don't wish that at all. But what I'm saying is that, you know, when you start seeing someone you like not being used, and it's not storyline, that's the most important thing. It's not storyline. You have to be concerned. Why at 6? Yeah, people keep saying, oh, they're coming back. Oh, January. Oh, February. Oh, March. Oh, Alexa Bliss is back. Oh, look, hidden sign. Oh, look, she had this mark. Oh, look, she's got the same mole in the same spot that Bo Dallas had. And meanwhile, it's like January, February, March, April, May, June. When do you get the point where you start being a little bit honest, saying like, I'm a little nervous right now. I'm a little nervous for my friend Cross. I'm a little nervous. You know, he's tremendously over right now. And they didn't even give him a spot in Money in the Bank. Now, if he does debut with the Righteous and adds an additional person, and they cause it a little chaos, fine. But we can't let that go into June, July, August, because there's other things that will be going down at that time. We're getting into start pushing SummerSlam territory. There are other people. We talked about Bayley earlier. We talked about a few others. If you have someone that you really like and you're starting to see a trend, you know, be a little bit concerned. You know, not for nothing, Tyler Bate, I know he just came back from injury, but, you know, look at his tag team partner who just had a kid, I believe. Congratulations to Pete Dunne. But I'm sure a lot of people saw the haircut that he got. Now he looks like a little boy. And there were rumors that, you know, WWE wanted him to be a coach. So there's a lot of people, if you don't see someone being used for quite some time, be concerned. Be concerned. Do not spread rumors that they're being released, but be concerned. Definitely be concerned. Rams fan, thank you, Rams fan. He says, I hope the R-Truth release is real and sticks. He's been a disgrace to wrestling. His gimmick was as bad as Eugene. It wasn't as bad as Eugene because, look, Eugene, I'm not going to criticize Eugene for his demons. But Eugene had a lot of demons. Nick Dinsmore should have been a lot further in wrestling than he did. He kind of ruined it for himself. But they brought him in. Wasn't he Eric Bischoff's nephew or something? And he was playing somebody who was mentally retarded. You know, we're coming off of not too far from the Attitude Era. And I'll never forget it. ECW One Night Stand. I had people calling my hotline and was telling me that the fans fucking wanted Sandman to beat the living shit out of Eugene. They loved it. They were like, beat that retard up. I mean, that doesn't mean they want to see mentally retarded people hurt, but the character was not this beloved person. You know, yeah, he would do goo-goo gaga stuff and would mimic everybody's wrestling moves. And it did get over to an extent, but after a while, it became annoying. R-Truth, though. R-Truth truly honed his craft and worked his ass off. He became the first Black NWA champion. And yes, the NWA championship at the time was not what it used to be. I get that. But no one ever felt that R-Truth didn't deserve what he got. The only time that I ever disliked R-Truth's career was when he was with Pac-Man Jones. And even that, he tried to make the best out of it. R-Truth, no matter what he was given, he always tried to make the best out of it. And listen, this is what R-Truth, this is how WWE wanted R-Truth to be used for years and years and years. This is how WWE used him. All right. It's not that R-Truth lobbied that he wants to play this role. You have a huge part of the wrestling world in and out of the business that fell in love with the guy. When you see that kind of love and appreciation, why would you change it up? You know, you compared Hulk Hogan before he turned into a piece of shit. I always compared it to Hulk Hogan. When Hulk Hogan would wrestle in Japan, people would be like, holy shit. What is he getting paid $5 million? Did the Yakuza threaten to kill him if he didn't wrestle good? I had no idea he could do this. In the United States, they didn't want him to do all that. He just needed to do the gimmick stuff, and that was fine. So with R-Truth, you know, you may not like the gimmick and the character, but that's not his fault. That's how WWE decided this is his role and this is what we want him to do. Listen, I loved him with 3 Live Crew. It was 3 Live Crew. His shit with Road Dogg was a hell of a lot of fun. His shit with Road Dogg was a hell of a lot of fun. I get it. Listen, I just said a week ago, it was the anniversary of the debut of the 24/7 title. And that title was garbage. I even said a week ago that, look, you know, say what you want, but R-Truth tried to make the best out of a bad situation. This week was the anniversary of the first title change. Well, other than the first night, he went golfing with Carmella. And Jinder Mahal rolled him up. And before Jinder Mahal could celebrate, R-Truth rolls him up, takes the title back, and races away on the cart. Was that bad skip because of him? No, it was because of WWE Creative. So, but I totally respect your view. Totally respect it. Blazing Bolts, man, I should be sending you 20 to say happy birthday, man. I will say, fuck you. You're half my age. He's 28. Happy birthday, Blazing Bolts. His favorite wrestler has always been The Rock. Wrestling to him right now is so underwhelming. I feel you. He enjoys more listening to me, Soup, and Marvin, the Movie Monster podcast. Never heard Marvin. It's mentioned before. Someone on my Patreon recommended him probably like a month ago. I haven't checked him out. But listen, you know, I've been a lifelong wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling in 79. I never stopped. There were some years that, wrestling might have been on TV, Saturday night's main event, and my friends are like, come on, we're going out to a club. Sorry, Hulkster, I got to go out. But wrestling was always a part of my life. There were definitely points where wrestling was not anywhere near as good as other times. You get your peaks and you get your valleys. What concerns me right now is that you're making record revenue. And your only reason why you're making record revenue is because you're jacking everything up. And yes, you're getting people right now that are paying it because they're coming off of the bloodline. They're coming off. I hope people realize more and more now why there was no way Cody was never finishing his story. If you just think back to a year and a half ago, if Rock would have ultimately showed up and told Cody, look, you have that chasing the story, finishing the story, going to all the house shows, telling everybody, if I don't win that championship at WrestleMania 40, I will never return here again. Doing promos, excuse me, while I turn around. And he was doing Dusty better than maybe what Dusty used to do. Everything was tribute to Dusty, but Cody's own way. You're not going to take a year and a half and then Rock signs, board of directors shows up and says, Cody, see this gobble-goal? I'm going to stick it right up your ass. I'm going to win the belt. I'm going to take on Roman Reigns, and I'm going to retire the belt. And then you can win it at SummerSlam 2024. That would have totally fucked everything up. Look at it like this. Everybody feels Rock fucked up WrestleMania this year, and he didn't even show. So I hope people realize now that WWE is riding the coattails of the bloodline. Cody Rhodes finishing the story. Cody Rhodes, it's insane how much money he's making right now. It's mind-boggling how much he's making right now. He is the most over. And Jey Uso also. You may not believe this, but 1 year ago, Jey Uso was the top-selling merchandise person. More than 1 week. Look it up if you think I'm making it up. You'll be surprised if you go check it out. There are some people killing it right now. But WWE is really relying on those few, on a very few group of people. And they're skating by. But how long does that be able to withstand that? Listen, Braun Breaker is awesome. Fucking love the guy. Love the pairing with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed now with them. It's great. Paul Heyman being one is tremendous. Is that a major ratings grab? No. Honestly, you could skip Monday Night Raw now for probably 3 weeks, turn it back on, and it's the same thing. Seth Rollins trying to get the gold, and Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker causing chaos, and Paul Heyman cutting promos, and whenever they want to get some real heel heat, just rip on Roman Reigns a little bit, and CM Punk trying to stop them, and Jey Uso trying to stop them, and then Gunther with a little bit of interaction because we don't want to forget about Gunther used to be chair. And next thing you know, a month goes by, and I could have missed it. That's when you know that there's issues. You could put fucking Ricky Starks, Ricky Saints, the New Orleans Saints, the fucking anybody you want. There's nobody right now that is going to be that one guy that is going to shift things in a different direction. There's nobody. It's a combined effort. But right now, WWE is depending on a very few people. And again, nothing against Roman Reigns. We know about his health. We know that they're dwindling down his career a little bit. We hear about the rumors of Hollywood, and, they got to take careful. But, there's more than just podcasters and social media that are looking at this like, wait a minute. Cody Rhodes loses to John Cena, another Travis Scott disaster, and he's sitting on the rampway. You might as well just throw in another fucking rubber chicken. I have a rubber chicken somewhere next to Cody. And he just finished joking along with Seth Rollins about Roman Reigns being a part-time player, and here's Cody Rhodes taking a month and a half off. Then Roman Reigns, remember, he was working out on the treadmill. I ain't a part-time player. I'm not a part-time player. I'm going to cut the promo and do this 20. And then he's gone after WrestleMania. You keep saying that. And people are like, they're just saying whatever we want to hear to buy into WrestleMania. It's almost like a bad OnlyFans account. You sign up for an OnlyFans account. Don't ask me how I know this. You sign up for an OnlyFans account. Hey, baby, click on this video, $5.55. Baby, you'll see for the first time I do this and I do that, and baby, all I want is you, and blah, 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 and click on this and I'll be your this and I'll be your that. And you click on it and it's basically just hanging out in a bikini, doing nothing. Like, I just got fucking jacked for $5.55. Everything that was kind of teased to me, I realize I have to buy this to get the opportunity to get something else. Oh, fuck you. That's what WWE's doing. WWE is kind of like doing a little bait and switch lately. And I don't care what anybody says. Cody Rhodes finally returns just in time for a Fanatics sponsored podcast, I should add. And this farce of John Cena with the world champ, we need to stop this now. Gee. Now imagine Cody going to any of you out there. Guys, I want to end John Cena's run as champion. How do we stop this farce now? Well, you get a couple of wrestling fans who are criminals say, hey, if you want to whack him, take this fucking salami, I'll crack it over his head. They'll have to do a tournament after they bury the guy. And someone else will say, win the Money in the Bank briefcase, cash it in when John Cena least expected, and you win your belt back. What Pollock out there is going to go to Cody Rhodes and say, I got it. Have a tag team match at Money in the Bank. I know there's no title on the line, but you'll pin the champion and that'll make a statement. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Let's do it. When I saw that, I enjoyed Saturday Night Smackdown. When I saw that, I'm like, if Cody would have had his rematch already, fine. If Gunther would have had his rematch with Jey Uso a month and a half ago, fine. But when you see Gunther wasting his time with Pat McAfee, and let's be honest, guys, after that match has happened, you would have thought that Pat McAfee and Gunther are sleeping with each other. Gunther cuts promos acting like an asshole, but okay, I have respect. That guy got in the ring, and I kicked his ass. I got respected. He got in the ring. Pat McAfee, remember? What he's doing to my goat, the greatest of all time. We cannot allow that. I will stop this bully. And you lost. I lost. I got my ass kicked, but I think I got a little respect out of him. That's not why you were fighting him in the first place. I know we're splitting hairs right now, but sooner or later, a lot of other people start piling this up together and be like, hey, wait a minute. And you know what happens? Just when you feel like you're at your boiling point, Roman Reigns returns and CM Punk challenges John Cena. And then you're like, all right, I'll stick around a little bit longer. Yeah, maybe I'll click that OnlyFans. This one is $4.15. Maybe I'll get what I want this time. And you're like, motherfucker. Thank you for that. Brian Hunt. Why can't the internet wrestling community realize that everyone leaves the WWE at some point, either by their own volition or being let go? Everybody does. Just like everybody dies. But here's the thing. It's not about record profits. The same people that are doing that line tonight on Twitter were doing that line during COVID. WWE has record profits, yet they're releasing 40 people. Why do you think they have record profits, dummies? Because the investors feel, okay, like I said, if I have a bunch of money in the bank and I have bills to pay, then all of a sudden I break my legs or somebody breaks my legs for me. Now I can't work for a little while. I turn around and I say, all right, no more spending. In fact, instead of me having 3 cars, I got to get rid of one, have 2. I pay the bills. I don't go beyond my means. And I start paying down my bills. And then when everything gets better, then I could go and I could celebrate again. And then what happens? Your husband or your wife says, honey, you're so smart. Honey, you're handling this so well. Honey, I love you. Honey, so right. And everybody's like, what a responsible person. That's somebody who I would get behind. And then you got another clown. I wouldn't let anybody go during COVID. It's not the right thing to do. And meanwhile, your bills are going through the roof. You're pissing away money more like never before. There's not a lot coming in. And everybody who's taking the money, oh, you're a saint. You're such a good person. You said you will be Time Magazine's Autistic Man of the Year. You'll be this, you'll be that. Meanwhile, if it was a publicly traded company, people would have been like, fuck it, get rid of this stock. This clown don't know how to fucking pay the bills. That's the world of business. It's not, I don't like it. You have to understand it. So we know our truth. They can afford it. They have an insane amount of money. Shit, we could set up a GoFundMe and have every wrestling fan contribute $1 and say, hey, WWE, we're going to pay his salary. Keep him on the payroll. And they still wouldn't keep him because they don't want to put him on television anymore. They just feel it's not worth it. That sucks. That sucks. And believe me, that GoFundMe thing could be absolutely true. We could set up a GoFundMe right now. Hey, WWE, we know you don't need it, but we're going to pay his salary. Whatever his salary is, put him on TV. And WWE be like, nah, we already made our decision. They just feel it's not, they don't want to waste the time. They don't want to waste the time. And let me tell you something. These people reporting SmackDown will be 3 hours for the foreseeable future. Interpret that in simple English. I have no idea when SmackDown is going to become 2 hours. So foreseeable future could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 6 months. I don't know the answer. So I'll just say foreseeable future. After 3 months of saying that SmackDown will go back to 2 hours by May. That's how these people play the game. But you're right, Brian. Everybody, ultimately, their time comes in WWE. It's just that he is so well liked. And it's not just liking the guy. He's a role model. He's a leader. People come to him in the company. He mentors young people. There are so many things, qualities, and traits that you want someone in your company to fill that role. In businesses, they have counselors, they have human resources, they have people, whatever. There are people, especially in this day and age, it's baffling that they don't have a role for him if they don't want to use him on TV. That's like what I said earlier. Either they're going to rehire him in a different capacity, or we're going to find out later that they offered him something else and he said no. Thank you, Brian. Starfighter is quoting The Rock. Hi, Dave, a.k.a. B. Arthur. The business is a complete work. Always has been, always will be. Every aspect of it, every match, every interview. The Rock will do irreparable damage to pro wrestling in the long term with this response. If he said it to every wrestling fan, that's different. Even though he said everything we see in the ring, characters, to me, that's just as bad. The Rock saying that to Dave LaGreca was a nice way of saying, Dave, stop acting like a girly pussy. It's fucking wrestling. It's entertainment. You wouldn't do that when you're watching General Hospital or Young and the Wrestlers or fucking Dallas or any other drama from back in the day. I can't think of anything today. So lighten the fuck up. We're playing characters here. That's what we do. Stop with what's going to happen tomorrow. Dave LaGreca is going to almost be crying about R-Truth's release. Seriously, he's going to get so emotional over this and that. And like, this is not fair. This is not right. And meanwhile, in the corner, there'll be a little DM from, we won't say anybody's names and singing. I'll be like, Dave, don't forget, WWE name drops us. So that's why he's got to go heel on TKO. It is what it is. It is what it is. By the way, someone asked me the other day, because on Patreon, I posted an interesting old graphic of Maven, and it was 4 feet in the shower. And, you know, it's simulating something, obviously. And it said Maven, you know, like he'll make a friend like in the shower or something. And people were asking me earlier tonight what that was all about. For all of you out there that have fell in love with Maven's podcast, go look up 2018. Just look at what he was doing in 2018. That's why, with all due respect, I mean, listen, everybody should get an opportunity at redemption. Everybody should get an opportunity to better their life and turn things around. No question about it. But, you know, when you kind of like doing what you're doing in 2018, and then you're like, hey, Justin, I have this great idea. You know, we'll get some money out of it. I'll show up at your house and ring the doorbell and I'll have the recording going. And you have to just act shocked and surprised, like, what are you doing here? If I would have done that to Maven in 2018, Maven would have broken a fucking bottle over my head. The fuck out of here. You think this is a fucking joke? So, you know, The Rock with Dave LaGreca, nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me. But Dave LaGreca, you know, he is the voice of the fans. You know, that's the method. That's the format. That's the plan. You know, if you ever want to see some good proof, just check out Busted Open 4 years ago. About 3 years ago. Just look at the repetitive, horrible takes. A lot of them anti-WWE. And then you look at it afterwards. And listen, WWE is much better now than what it was even 3 years ago. Let's be honest about that. But there was some incredibly weird takes that you know were intentionally done by design for various reasons. Put it this way, that's when Tony Khan was still going on Busted Open. So listen, I have nothing personal against Dave. I really don't. I have nothing personal against him. But yeah, The Rock, you know, put him in his place. It is what it is, you know. And they have a big following, so you kind of expected that. Blazing Bolts says Deli Man versus Roman Reigns. Deli Man's wins by hitting Roman with the salami stick. Let me tell you something. This is metal. And I accidentally, if you ever want to see something funny, you remember when I was on Monty and the Pharaoh, they had me on as a guest? I think it was last year. If you look closely, when I take this thing out, I accidentally hit myself in the tooth with it. And I honestly thought I'd knocked my tooth out. You actually will see, like, during the show, I'm going like this, and it doesn't look very good, but I accidentally hit myself in the mouth with this thing. That shit is a deadly weapon. This thing weighs at least 10 pounds. It's a very, very heavy item. That's why I never dropped it in the ring. Because if you drop it, it'll break into a million pieces. If you actually look closely, you'll see the little, these are chips. That's not like mold. This is not a real salami. Those are chips, because when you do like drop it on the desk in here and there, like a little comes off with it, but that thing is deadly, man. I miss doing Deli Man. See, he's chilling. Wait, there he is. He's chilling. But I will tell you this, man, and I mean this. I totally respect even Evil Uno. I respect anybody who works under a mask, because when I put on the deli mask on, even when I was doing Thunderdome all those times, after 15 minutes, it smells like you're breathing in a dead horse. And there were even like times, like right before Thunderdome, I brushed my teeth and put mouthwash. I would gargle and have nice minty breath, put the mask on. 15 minutes later, I smell like horse. It smells like death. And I just say to myself, I can only imagine some of these wrestlers who fucking breathe this in for like, if I'm a Lucha Libre star and they're like, you must wrestle 30 minutes. I feel like, oh, fucking no. No, I am not. Unless I get one of those masks with the nose and the mouth cut out. Well, that's why I think, you know what? Somebody should interview Chad Gable once they reveal that El Grande is Chad Gable. Because Chad Gable right now, if you interview him, like, listen, how bad is it? Did you insist on having the mouth open so you didn't have to breathe your own, like, breath? He'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm not El Grande Americano. But think down the line, I think some wrestlers make a request. Please, I want the nose and the mouth open. I do not want to smell my own breath. It's the worst smell in the world. Trust me. It is awful. Trust me. People like, I miss Deli Man. I miss Deli Man too, but I kind of wish when I made it, I would have had it made a little bit differently. I had no idea. The first time I ever put that on, I put it on in the house and I would take it off after a minute because it's very hot. And I start sweating. I'm like, no, I don't want to get the mess all sweated up. But when I did the first show and I put it on and they had me, this is no joke, they had me waiting in another corner and I ended up not doing my segment. Greg the Hammer Valentine was doing something in the ring. And they come over to me after 20 minutes like, we can't do your segment. It's too late. I'm like, all right, whatever. It is what it is. But I stood there for 20 minutes waiting for my segment. And I'm literally sitting in the corner on the opposite side of the building. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this smell? And it's my breath. And it's completely tied. So it's not like it could like lift it up. That's why Hogan, remember Mr. America? That I guarantee you the reason why that guy didn't tie the mask is because if his fucking breath started smelling awful, like he could literally just lift the nose up under the ring or something. It's the worst, man. It is the worst. That's why whenever you see a masked wrestler wrestle an hour, you should feel bad for them. Because you could have the nicest breath when it starts. By the end, it's like a dead skunk in like the Arizona heat all day long. And then you just decide, I'm going to stick my nose up its private area and just, oof, it's bad. It is bad. Thank you, Casey is Raw. 33 months as a channel member. Liam Savage, 2 years as a channel member. DeMarcus, shout out to DeMarcus, my friend. 13 months as a member of the family here. And he is also a member of the family on Patreon. By the way, I did update some of our Patreon family. I'll be adding some more names next week, but big shout out to these very kind and generous people, and you will see names multiple times. So I want to thank you all. And how long we've gone? We've gone 90 minutes already. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you, R-Truth. Thank you, Carlito. Thank you, Camille. Sucks that we had to have those topics, but how many of you do think that Janelle Grant and John Laurinaitis will become an item again? I think that's a legitimate possibility. I know it sounds crazy, but they obviously enjoyed their company together. Two lost souls. This was meant to be. I don't think they will, but I just want to know if they negotiated this over breakfast. That would be kind of ironic. They signed the deal over breakfast. Why wouldn't they be a couple? They sexually enjoyed each other. We're being honest for a minute. They're both single. Why wouldn't they be a couple again? They both obviously have a couple of screws loose, a couple of eggs short of a dozen, a couple of munchkins short of a 10-pack. Tristan says, what I think of Mae Young giving birth to a hand? It was so bad. Like, we covered it. I think there's a DTKC show at that time when we covered it. It still is not as bad as Jim Ross. Everybody, and it's kind of funny to show you how much time has gone by. Jim Ross just had surgery for colon cancer, and the surgery Apparently is a success, which is awesome. But soon as I heard the news that he's dealing with colon cancer and he's got to get surgery, I was waiting for the first person to be that guy to show Vince McMahon in the hospital room with the Jim Ross head. A lot of people seem to have forgotten about that skit. You know, those out there that don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up. To me, that was 10 times worse than the Mae Young thing. The Mae Young thing was stupid. Everything with the Mark Henry stuff was stupid. But it was just so bad, it was like, you know, whatever. Roderick is asking, do I see JC Jane as a transitional champion? Maybe for a debuting Mariah May. Okay. I am going to talk a little bit about Mariah May tomorrow when we get into news. What I will say here right now is this. Early in the year, when a lot of people were making this a major story, I honestly said that is way premature because you truly do not know if she is going to sign with WWE. Now, for some of those podcasters out there that right now may be saying, ha, told you. You also said that about Jay White. You also said that about some others over the last couple of years. People forget. Okada, close to signing with WWE, reporting NXT. People are like, no, Okada should fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And we know what happened. So early on, I said, let's wait a little bit further. I will say this. Two things. Number one, Mariah May will have to be repackaged. She not necessarily needs to change her hair color, but she needs to be repackaged a little bit. People used to compare her to Tiffany Stratton a little bit too much. She will be repackaged a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they change her name, but I still will not say that it's 100% guaranteed that she's going to WWE or NXT. I know the news outlets are reporting it, but they're all using the word expected. She is expected to be signed and go to NXT. Expected. So it's not 100%. I am pretty surprised that AEW did not re-sign her, even if it was for just 1 or 2 years. Because I think we all agree that WWE's women's roster is really fucking loaded right now. It is really, really loaded. And you look at Mariah May and very, very talented, no mistake about it. But how does she fit in right now in the grand scheme of things? You bring her in and you leave her in NXT for 2 years to get acclimated, to get reintroduced, to tweak the character. You know, that's the thing. Mariah May is already a star. So you bring her into WWE, and I say this more times than maybe I should. You look at Raw, you look at SmackDown. Where does she fit in that equation? How is she going to leapfrog that many people? She's not. So then you say, okay, NXT. Maybe NXT is perfect right now because Stephanie Vaquer just got promoted. Roxanne Perez just got promoted. Julia just got promoted. Those are 3 huge fucking names to lose on a Tuesday night. So suddenly, Mariah May fits. If Stephanie Vaquer and Julia was still on NXT's roster, yeah, it might be a little bit more difficult. But I don't know if she's transitional to Mariah May. I think Kalani Jordan may actually win it first. I thought Kalani Jordan was on the short route to the main roster. But now with Stephanie going to Raw, I could see Kalani Jordan getting that moment in NXT, becoming women's world champion before she goes to the main roster. So I kind of think Kalani Jordan will win the championship before Mariah May. But, you know, we have to wait. until I see Mariah May in NXT. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that this was a star that many people feel was created in AEW. Why wouldn't you open the cash register a little bit more to keep someone and build it into a bigger legacy? You know, it's not like, you know, look, if I took a picture inside right now, my two dogs have probably about 80 toys. And I swear on my family, I'm not lying. I got to next week show you the toy. They are obsessed with one $5 toy that looks like a slipper. It's about this big and it's a squeak toy. And every night they fight over this $5 toy. And I look at all these other fucking toys and I'm like, honey, we bought them all this other crazy shit and then they go nuts over a $5 toy. My point is this. Tony Khan cannot think like a dog, where Tony Khan has 80 women, but there's 3 little slippers that he loves to bite on every day in the form of Tony Storm, in the form of Mercedes Moné, in the form of whoever else. And then it's fuck everybody else. You know, let's not forget, this week is the anniversary that Chris Statlander ended Jade Cargill's undefeated streak and her reign as TBS champion. And it went nowhere. Then it was not too long ago that Chris Statlander turned heel for some reason. Why did you do that? You'll find out on Wednesday. Then she turns on Orange Cassidy. Then none of it makes sense. And everybody's like, why was this done? And then suddenly, oh my God, we need to turn a babyface. And now, how is that working now? You know, so Mariah May was somebody that developed in AEW that you have right there. How do you not open the drawer and try to keep her for another year or two and establish her so much that even if she does go to WWE down the line, people will keep remembering her AEW run. So I'm a little shocked because, listen, nothing against some of the women that AEW signed recently from overseas. But in the United States, you could have Excalibur scream at the top of his lungs, that's Thokla, or whatever the names are. And people are like, so what has this person done on my American television that makes me want to go goo gaga over them? You know, really. I mean, I don't care what the fuck somebody does overseas. I remember when Kenta came to NXT, people were losing their shit. And I'm like, I don't care what he did over there. I want to see what he does here. And to me, it amounted next to nothing. And for a couple of years, Kenta, to keep his name out there, kept challenging CM Punk. CM Punk was like, what's this guy? And finally that went away. That subsided. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Javieri. What's up, Javieri? He says, with so many classic matches between The Undertaker and Mankind, why we never got a match between Undertaker versus Cactus Jack or Dude Love? If Charlotte wasn't injured, would she face Rhea or Io at WrestleMania 40 if she wasn't injured at the time? Well, first of all, I think we would have possibly gotten the rematch with Rhea Ripley. The problem is, and you know, this is something I was saying for 41. WWE wanted Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair for a long time. They had some NXT action, but that was a match that WWE wanted for a while. And it didn't work out for various reasons. Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley had an amazing match the year before. And I don't know if that match could ever be duplicated. So it wasn't a necessity anymore for WWE to go that route. I personally think Charlotte Flair versus Rhea would have been, if by force, where they just felt, okay, something else happened. Maybe somebody gets injured and they just feel this is the best option available. That's the only way I would have seen it at 40. Io at the time, she didn't have the momentum that she has now. I give WWE credit. They have done a tremendous job with Io Sky the last 3 months. You know, it was only a couple of weeks before WrestleMania, right before Kev passed away, that we were just talking about Grumpy Cat. She had no smile on her face. We were talking about every week, Grumpy Cat, Grumpy Cat, Grumpy Cat. I mean, literally Kev passes away and suddenly Io Sky is smiling. And I'm like, boy, Kev would have loved to have seen this. And then she was insanely over at Mania. And then you see her family at ringside and they're crying when she won. And it's like, wow, I'm a Io Sky fan. You know, I'm digging what she's doing. I'm so happy that she's in this position right now. At the time, I don't know if it would have led to that. Because, you know, the interesting thing is, you look at Bianca Belair. If you guys check out the history show I posted yesterday, there is a clip about 4 hours in, and it's from 2018. And the clip is something that WWE put out, 4 minutes long, and it's called Who is Bianca Belair? And it's an amazing package about her upbringing and what led her to where she is now. But what you realize quickly is that from 2018 to now, not that much has changed about Bianca Belair. She's still, like doing a thing. She's got almost the same type of outfits. Her body looks the same. She hasn't aged, which is beautiful. She talks the same. The EST is still the same. The music's still the same. If you look, a lot of Bianca Belair is the same from 7 years ago. Why am I saying this? Because I think leading into WrestleMania 40, I think some people are getting a little tired of the same, being fed the same thing for so many years. Some people are trying to turn it into a black thing online, which was just stupid. But I think that's why they rooted for Io just a little bit more. Because Rhea, everything's been focused around Rhea. Bianca feels like, okay, this is what we expect every year with Bianca. And I think some people started rooting for Io instead. I don't think that would have worked with Charlotte Flair. I don't think that would have worked with Charlotte Flair. It would have been interpreted so much differently. I think Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton was the way to go. And Undertaker, Mankind, this is the thing. Mankind was a created character in the WWE. Cactus Jack was not. Dude Love was also, but Dude Love was considered a joke. Dude Love was a comedy act, like he created it before he ever really got into wrestling. It was kind of like a joke more than anything else. But, at the time, Mankind, when he fought Undertaker, it was still, even though we saw moments of Cactus Jack, Mankind was a WWE creation. So when Undertaker feuded with Mankind, once they started creating beautiful music together, you didn't want to turn it up. And the funny thing is, I still say Cactus Jack is my favorite Mick Foley character of all time. But I don't remember myself ever back in the late 90s saying, man, I wish it was Cactus Jack right now and not Mankind. I never said that, which is kind of interesting. I honestly could tell you, going back to the hotline days and the early podcasting days, even though podcasting was more 03, I never, ever recall ever saying, man, I wish he was doing Cactus Jack right now. I don't think anybody really did. So I think it's just that they gelled so good together. Like, why change it? Why change it? So I think that's the reason why, more than anything. But thank you for that, Havili. Thank you. Hope everything is well with you. Rocky Red predicts El Grande Americano wins tomorrow. Chad Cable will pull double duty in Los Angeles. Rhea wins Money in the Bank. And you could see Rhea in the bank briefcase. Mammy in the Bank. Yeah, I kind of like that. It is catchy. Mammy in the Bank. Yeah, I still have a bunch of Money in the Bank briefcases. Maybe we could give away one this year. I got to say, I got to check my office. There's a bunch. I had one that was a different color. I don't know if it was gold. I had one that I don't recall ever like having this color on TV, but I was like, wait, where did I get this color from? Tomorrow it's what? CM Punk, El Grande Americano. And who's the third person in the match? Who's the third person in the match? Someone in the chat tell me. It's El Grande Americano, CM Punk, AJ Styles. Thank you, Roderick. I kind of think CM Punk may actually get the spot because Seth Rollins is in it. So I could see that. Seth Rollins and CM Punk back and forth, heating each other on the ladder. And then tsunami. I kind of like feel that. I know it's predictable, but I don't know. I don't know if I personally don't think you don't have El Grande Americano doing double duty. I know Chad Gable. Well, you know what though? We have to see an appearance for El Grande Americano. But at Worlds Collide, but I don't think you need to do that. I don't think you need to do that. I think the fans would rather see CM Punk. Plus, what are you going to do with CM Punk then with Money in the Bank if he's not in that match? What are you going to do? Just have him come out during the Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul Cena match? Ugh. Well, Vance, not to jump ahead, but, Cross hasn't been on TV. And although a lot of fans were lobbying for it, say what you want about WWE creative right now. But one thing I think we all agree on is that WWE uses a lot more common sense now than it used to. A lot more common sense. And there would be enough fans out there that would say, why is he getting Money in the Bank qualifying match? It's done nothing. I even think Cross would tell you that. So, no, I don't think if they would have done like a battle royal to determine like who's going to be, and they wouldn't do that because it's stupid. That sounds more TNA than anything else. That's different. When you get someone who unexpectedly wins a match, but it wouldn't make sense to put him in a qualifying match right now because he hasn't done anything. I think the faction debut could be coming. This stuff with Sami Zayn has got to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere. We're getting a little tired. It's been, 7 months since they started interacting? Sooner or later, it's got to come to development. So, but Rhea Ripley winning Money in the Bank, I could definitely see it. Because now she could show up on both brands. Yeah. Whoever wins Money in the Bank is going to be able to show up on both shows. Because they could turn around and say, I could cash in on you. I could cash in on you. I could see if they're not turning Damian Priest heel yet, I could see her showing up on SmackDown just to be reunited for a segment with Damian Priest. After she teases that she's going to cash in on Tiffany Stratton, she bumps in the back with Damian Priest. And you have that little hug and the crowd gets a little pop. So Money in the Bank is definitely a possibility. I'm not doing predictions yet, but that is definitely a possibility. Money in the Bank is next Saturday, if I remember correctly, right? Next Saturday. Could somebody confirm that? Is it the 12th? Is it the 14th, right? Is Money in the Bank is what? The 4th? Wait a minute. Money in the Bank is next week? So we got to do predictions tomorrow. Wow, we got to do Money in the Bank predictions tomorrow. Oh. I almost had a disaster just now. I hope you know that. You know what just happened? You see this? This is canned air. The piece on the top fell off, and I pressed it, and I swear to God, you probably saw that. The straw almost went right down my throat. I went like this, and it loosened up. This thing almost just shot in my throat. I can't even joke with stuff like that. Ooh. Yeah, so we're going to do predictions tomorrow. I'll look in my office tomorrow, see if I find a briefcase. I know I have at least 2 or 3. Maybe we'll give away a briefcase this week. We'll do a predictions contest. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. If Tessa has joined WWE, if she joined around 2014, 2015, who would she have replaced in the 4 Horsewomen? Possibility of Charlotte versus Tessa this year. This is a hot topic that shows up on Patreon all the time. Number 1, Charlotte Flair's father and Tessa Blanchard's father means next to nothing in 2025 with Endeavor and TKO. For wrestling fans, they are both daughters of legends. And honestly, that wouldn't add any billing to it. Like, that would be a bigger deal in AEW. Like, if Charlotte and Tessa were going to fight in AEW, they would definitely have a segment where both fathers come out in each corner. And in WWE, I don't even think they care about that. So, they haven't even sat in ringside for Saturday night's main event. I don't think that would happen. I personally feel WWE is they're not desiring Tessa Blanchard right now. She obviously would be a tremendous addition, but she's a name that has a little bit too much baggage right now. I would say let's wait a year because, listen, you still got your Tessa, we coming for you. Tessa, we coming for you. Tessa. It's still happening. It's a catchy thing. It's a fun thing. You know, you go to a show. I mean, let's be honest. You go to a TNA show, you sit in ringside, and you're black. I mean, my God, Tessa Blanchard comes out. Tessa, we coming for you. They know the deal. They know that Tessa fucked up. But I think true people feel, all right, she's an asshole, but, you know, there's no signs that she's still, you know, acting like a racist. I think most fans understand that. But it's fun to troll people we don't like, right? I mean, if we're honest. So right now, the fans still find it enjoyable to troll Tessa. Charlotte gets trolled also, but Charlotte has a lifelong WWE career to fall back on and a legacy in WWE. Tessa does not. So you bring Tessa in, you know, you're bringing in a lot of heat with it, and you'll get a lot of wrestling fans complaining, WWE Triple H, how could you bring this person in? Did you not see this? And, oh, not a good time. Not yet. Not yet. Maggie asks, death by salami or death by canned air? Honestly, canned air. I'll reveal a true story. A true story. I'm not proud of it, but I will tell you a true story. Back when I was in my 20s, one of the things, I didn't like to do drugs. Never liked to do drugs. Experimented a little bit. Never liked it. Felt too much money and gave me a headache. Never got into weed either. We've talked about that before. But one of the things that my friends used to do sometimes was called whippets. I don't know if anybody knows what whippets are. I don't even know if I should be giving like a tutorial right now, but basically, from what I remember, anybody ever have a soda stream and you make your own sparkling water? You could add syrup to it and have your own soda. I have a soda stream. So back in the 80s, if you wanted to make club soda, if I remember correctly, you used these CO2 cartridges that look like bullets, big silver bullets, CO2 cartridges. And all I remember at the time is my friend would pop open a CO2 and then take a balloon, big balloon, stick it on the CO2, and it would fill up with carbon dioxide. And I believe it's not like helium where you would breathe it in and be like, hey, everybody, what's going on? Like, it doesn't change your voice like that, but my friend would take the balloon and go, and you hold your breath. And it gives you like an incredible high. I did it once, maybe twice. And yes, people are admitting on social media right now that they used to do it too. This is a true story. I'll never forget. I was sitting in my friend Kenny's basement and they were doing whippets. So me, to try to look cool, I'm like, yeah, give me, I'll take one. So they fill up the balloon. I take the balloon, and me, I'm a big guy, so I got big lungs. So I took that balloon, I went, and I held it, and I was warped out of my mind. And I suddenly felt invincible. And if I remember correctly, I think my face was numb, my head was numb. And I was like, yeah, you hit me. And my friend's like, no, I don't want to hit you. He's like, come on, hit me. I'm like, good, come on. And I'm hitting myself. I don't feel nothing. And I think my friend picked up like a piece of wood or something, and he just went like, crack. And that hurt. See the red mark? Oh my God, what did I do? So he cracked me literally in the head, and I almost got knocked out. And I didn't feel it at first. Then later on, I was like, what the hell? Never did a whippet ever again. That is a true story. And honestly, guys, could I make that up on spur of the moment if it wasn't true? That's the God honest truth. All right, we're going to start bringing this home because we're almost 2 hours. But I appreciate everybody hanging out. Fun tonight. Jimmy Fingers, what's up, Jimmy? Jimmy, he's late, DT, so he missed most of the show. Did I cover the entire SmackDown tag team division, repeated the same segment as last week, including the Wyatts, who did everything, every move sequence identical from last week? Lazy booking. No, I didn't talk about that because WWE's been doing rinse and repeat over and over and over and over and over again. I personally do not like the reintroduction of the Wyatts, and it's about tag team wrestling. You know, like, I'm just, you know what WWE's really lacking right now? Really, really, really good storyline. If you really think about it, like Jacob Fatu having a little bit of friction is cool and everything. They're really lacking that storyline that is good enough for us. You know, we got spoiled with the bloodline. And not just spoiled with the bloodline. You know, Sami Zayn, you know, remember Sami Zayn, how many months did they tease Sami Zayn's an oos? Is he the bloodline or is he not? How many months did it take for Kevin Owens was Sami Zayn to get it through Kevin Owens get through Sami Zayn's head or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, they just take too freaking long to advance storylines. You know, look at Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor. You know, it's over a year, maybe more than that they've been teasing a fallout with Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor. It's been more. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And they have really, really been lacking that storyline. They're like, hey, you know what? You know, things are not so great right now, but I'll take this. Okay, that's good enough. Carry over the conversation. So, you know, SmackDown's a 3-hour show still. And, you know, they have to obviously give us more. You know, not that much more from Raw, but more. You know, so they're going to do a lot of rinse and repeat, a lot of rematches. This is what happens when you focus on less people. SmackDown is a little bit more younger wrestlers, tag team, women, you know, the women's side of things. Raw, it's much different. Raw, it feels like Seth Rollins' group, Gunther, Jey Uso, CM Punk, you know, Sami Zayn, and pretty much everybody else. You know, like Creed's How many times we had the Creeds and the Viking Raiders going at it? If you really look at it, you'll be surprised. So, no, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. The problem with AEW is had, and WWE has this problem a little bit. They had it for 2 years with the Street Profits. In fact, they had it for more than 2 years. They had it for about 2.5 years. Street Profits, I'll never forget it. Remember that SummerSlam match? When they came out dressed in, they dressed in all white. They were taking on the Usos. And they had like a 5-star match like a month or two before SummerSlam. And everybody was like, this is their moment. This is their time. Street Profits, this is their peak. Everybody felt everything was aligned perfectly. Street Profits are getting it. We did not know that they were planning the history they were with the Bloodline and the Usos, but they didn't win. But not only that, for the next 2.5 years, they would have the Street Profits get these moments. Remember, you'd have the Street Profits come out, and 1 week they're growling, with Bobby Lashley, Montez Ford. Argh. Then they're wearing suits. Then they're not wearing suits. And then they want to smoke. And then they would win a bunch of matches. They're fed up. It's time. And then nothing would happen. Then last year's WrestleMania, they fight the Final Testament. And, now they're getting some momentum. And it just, for 2.5 years, it just felt like, all right, they're winning some matches, but it doesn't feel like they're getting pushed at all. And that's a big problem in AEW. You look at AEW 2-3 years ago to now, and you will see a lot of wrestlers, and you'll ask yourself, okay, has this person's value gone up over the last year? Just go back 12 months. In fact, that's going to be something we're going to do on a special episode in the near future. We did this a couple of years ago for 2 years, Kevin and I. We looked at the roster and we looked at WWE also, and we said, is this person's value gone up in the last 12 months? If you look at some of those wrestlers there, and you realize quickly there is a shitload of people there, their value has not gone up at all. Just because someone is suddenly on TV of winning some matches that means shit. And the greatest example that I remember we went out of our way talking about was Lance Archer. Remember last year? Suddenly he's on TV. He's winning this match. He's winning this match. I said, wait 2-3 weeks. Suddenly he's facing Will Ospreay. Bye-bye, Lance. Bye-bye, Lance. Oh, but nothing. And you see some other, just because someone's on TV and even winning matches doesn't mean that they're being developed and their value is going up. It's all about perception. And, listen, good that AEW got rid of the rankings, but on the flip side of it, you could see what's going on right now. Tony Khan adores Mercedes Moné so much, she gets the Sting run. I can't have her lose. Can't have her lose. Will Ospreay is the only one there that Will Ospreay thinks, if I lose, I win. The fans will want me even more. They want me to win it even more. I could lose. I will win. I will win by losing. One of the dumbest things that I read recently was that Hangman Page and Will Ospreay lobbied for each other to win the Owen Hart Cup and Main Event All In. And I'm like, that is AEW's problem in a nutshell. Wrestlers should not be doing that. The promoter should be seeing who is the hot commodity and who should be the one for the fans that want to see go on to the, not, oh, boss, he should win. No, he should win. I think he should win. Give him this spot. It's not up to you. And that shouldn't even be made public. I don't feel that's as dumb as I'm not going to release anybody during COVID because that's the right thing to do. That if you run a business, if you need to cut down, you must. It's So listen, SmackDown has been doing much better in the tag team division. I want to see the women's tag team scene heat up. And I'm totally on the opposite side about AEW and women's tag team wrestling. I see everybody out there. Tony, what are you, stupid? Worry about your women's division. Don't introduce women's tag belts. My opinion, absolutely introduce women's tag belts. Because you have too many women there right now that are not Tony's faves, that are not going to get any type of development. So if you have tag team titles, then you can have 2 people, 4 people, 8 people in a different division fighting for each other, and it's on TV, and they could gun for something, then who knows what comes out of it. You'd rather not have Tony fix the women's. What does that even mean after 6 years of AEW? You need to concern yourself about, in Tony Khan's eyes, concern myself about what? I have the greatest women in AEW. I have the greatest women. We have the greatest women in wrestling today. We're going to have Toni Storm, who's been the Woman of the Year, versus Mercedes Moné, the greatest of all time. So how do you get through Tony's head to fix the women's division when they think there's nothing wrong with it? So it's a nice thing to say, but that doesn't help the women's division. And if AEW introduces women's tag titles and WWE continues the shit job that they remember, this week or next week is the anniversary that Alba Fire and Isla Dawn got moved to the main roster as NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And then they announced, we're going to do a unification match. Bye-bye NXT Women's Tag Team belts. And they have not returned. WWE does a horrible job with the women's tag team division. That might be something that AEW could capitalize on with their women. All right. If Samoa Joe did not leave WWE, thank you, Havili, by the way, for the 50 spot. Would he have joined the OG Bloodline or the new Bloodline? I say neither. There was a question on Facebook a few weeks ago on who Triple H replaced on Team WWF. Austin, Taker, Jericho, Kane, and Angle would have been the one to turn on Team WWF. All right. Who Triple H would have replaced? Who would he have replaced? At the time, I would say maybe Jericho. Maybe Jericho. By the way, you see the red. Didn't really hurt, but it kind of burns. I think he would have replaced Jericho. Steve Austin and Kurt Angle, you're not going to, separate that. Kane and Undertaker, need I say more? I think Jericho probably would have been the one, to be honest with you. And just because someone is Samoan doesn't mean they're automatic bloodline. There were many times when Samoa Joe was in the WWE that he could have been surrounded by fellow Samoans, and it didn't happen. I just personally think Samoa Joe is better. Remember when I said last week I truly believe Malachi Black is missing a faction? He needs a faction. Samoa Joe is someone who does not need a faction. Maybe they use him in a faction now because they want to, start diminishing the amount of time he's in the ring because of age. But no, Samoa Joe is someone that you keep by yourself. Let him be a loner. Let him be by himself. I would not have put him in the bloodline. Would not have put him in the bloodline at all. I would have just left him by himself. Thank you, Habili, for that. Much love. Much love. He also says, New Jack City, Boys in the Hood, Men of Society. My choice will always be New Jack City. Rockabye Baby. New Jack City is my favorite. It's in my top 10 of my favorite movies of all time. The only scene that I hated in that movie, not because it was 2 black guys getting laid, but that song, I Want to Sex You Up. I saw Color Me Bad open for Paul Abdul. In fact, I got the pictures somewhere in his room. I kid you not, I have the pictures somewhere in here. I don't see them around, but thank God. I hated them. I hated that song. My ex-girlfriend at the time went nuts for them. So when I saw that fucking movie and I'm hearing that song, ooh, I'm like, fuck. Hated that song. You would have caught me watching Jersey Shore before I would listen to that song. But New Jack City, that movie all the way. What year did the Mets should have won the World Series? And he says, thanks, I didn't answer the first part of his questions, but it's all good. What first part did I not answer? I will go flashback and double check. I did answer Bloodline. I did answer Tessa. Oh, I remember this one. Okay. Tessa wouldn't have replaced anybody in 2014 or 2015. She was a super unknown at the time. And even though Bayley, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch were not very, very close, because they were four on the development at the same time, they were kind of put together as the four horsewomen. I don't think Tessa Blanchard would have fit in. Tessa Blanchard, I think, was way too early. I would not have put her with them. Even, listen, just because someone is the daughter of a Hall of Famer or a legend doesn't mean that they should immediately put in a certain faction. And listen, Four Horsewomen didn't consist of daughters of legends. For some reason, I can't think of Becky Lynch's father in wrestling, even though maybe he did, or Bayley, or even Sasha Banks. They just, at the time, the fans just bunched them together, and it was organic. I don't think Tessa Blanchard would have fit that organic role, to be honest with you. So, but getting back, what year did the Mets should have won the World Series? Well, last year, I felt they were one player away. This year, I felt the Knicks were one player away, and they did lose, unfortunately. Let's see who they add next year. Realistically, from watching the Mets my entire life, 1988, I wish they would have won. They should have won in 88. That year, they dominated the Dodgers all year long. Then they went to the playoffs and they choked. They choked. If I remember correctly, I even think David Cohn wrote some dumb article in the newspaper, and it kind of lit a fire under the ass of the Dodgers too. Now, don't get me wrong. Kirk Gibson, became legend in the 88 World Series. That's still amazing, that home run against Dennis Eckersley. That you couldn't even make that into a movie. People would have said that that's stupid. The Mets should have won 88. They shouldn't have won in 2000 or 2001. They were not ready. And last year, I felt they were one player short. So hopefully that answers you. 90s Mets, no. And lastly, if WWE didn't scratch the Bloodline storyline, would I have seen the possibility of both Bloodlines reuniting or one of them being disbanded? And most likely of Stephanie Vaquer winning the Money in the Bank. I don't see Stephanie Vaquer winning Money in the Bank. I think you take your time. I think it's a little too soon. I kind of like the Rhea Ripley aspect of it because it's more gimmicky. Stephanie Vaquer doesn't need a briefcase to challenge for a championship. Rhea Ripley doesn't either, but remember, Stephanie Vaquer still doesn't speak great English. I am a huge fucking fan of Stephanie Vaquer, as many of you. But I don't get the same vibe of SmackDown. Who's this? Stephanie Vaquer. She's got the briefcase. Tiffany, I will maybe cash in against you. I'm not making fun of Stephanie, but it doesn't give the same energy if Rhea Ripley shows up and you hear the music and she stomps her foot down, everybody loses their shit. It's a little too soon for Stephanie. Take your time. No rush for Stephanie Vaquer. So I say no. No. And if they didn't scratch the Bloodline storyline, could I have seen them reuniting or combining or disband? No, I just think it was time. Jey Uso, like I said, a year ago was top merchandise seller for many weeks. Never thought he would become world champion. And remember, it was not that long ago that Rikishi go to AEW. It wasn't that long ago, but WWE obviously saw something. Listen, I truthfully believe, I'm going to make a prediction. I have no inside source, but I have a feeling I'm right. You're going to see WWE Unreal, and a shitload of it is going to be focused around Jey Uso. Shitload of it is going to be focused around Jey Uso. And Gunther knows exactly how to play it up. We're supposed to see reality, but even that is scripted. So, let me put it this way. This is not a case where Triple H talked to Gunther before WrestleMania and says, listen, we're going to have Jey Uso defeat you for the championship, and we're going to have you tap out. And Gunther says to him, I think that is a stupid idea. And they have like a little bit back and forth, and Gunther is not thrilled. And then a little bit later on, Triple H says, listen, by the way, we recorded you. We're going to have a new show called WWE Unreal. So everything that we just recorded, we're going to show everybody. I guarantee you, everybody being recorded knew that they were being recorded for a new TV series coming up called WWE Unreal. So let me put it this way, and we'll start wrapping this up. Let me put it this way. When Gunther walks in for a big meeting with Triple H and creative team, and I guarantee you this happens. When Gunther walks in, or Jey Uso walks in, even better, Jey Uso walks in, big creative meeting, and he looks around, and he sees Bruce Pritchard, and he sees Michael Hayes, he sees Triple H, sees Nick Khan, and everybody else. And he looks in the corner and sees like a bunch of cameramen. Hey, you look like a cameraman in this creative meeting. Hey, you seriously, like whenever you watch some of these meetings, remember there's a cameraman in there with lights on and spotlights and everything else. And listen, when you're having a show and people are walking around in Gorilla, this camera's always recording. They know that. But when you go in for a creative meeting and you're going to do this, you normally don't have cameras there. You're talking about, contract. You're talking about WrestleMania. You're talking about we're going to do this, or we're talking about we're going to do this or do that. You don't have cameras in there. Suddenly, Gunther's going to walk in and be like, why is this camera in my face? Oh, we're just recording it for prosperity. Remember that. Remember that. So when they say, we're going to turn back the curtain, I want to see how many wrestlers say, there's a camera in this room. We never have cameras in the room when we talk. Always got to try to think one step ahead. You always got to try and think one step ahead. Billy says, this year marked 20th anniversary of John Cena's release, You Can't See Me album. Thoughts about it? Did I buy it? My favorite song. I actually, and did I watch LFG or Stephanie's Places? I haven't really watched a lot of Stephanie's Places because, when we heard about the ESPN, like the 6-part series that she was doing, it's like, no one's going to say anything really controversial. Cena, interesting timing to do that interview, but I think it's a nice little treat for fans out there. I mean, Stephanie is liked. Stephanie is a social person, very easy going. So these are fun, lighthearted, down-to-earth interviews. But it's not something that I would go out of my way to watch. LFG, I don't watch that much of because it's developmental for even NXT. Too many people put that show way too high, and you forget that these are people that are still new. I know they have some NXT people, and I know Kylie Ray's there and everything, but some people that are there that are only getting their feet wet, that don't even know how to cut promos yet, and people are like under the microscope, and that's too much. That's too much. So And I just watched the music video for Bad Man a couple of days ago. In fact, even for the channel members on YouTube, I put a little tribute to John Cena's music video. I love that music video. I love that song. Can't believe that WWE didn't utilize that song more. Bad Man, that's a great fucking song. Still remember Bumpy Knuckles and Trademark. I think his name was Trademark. Great spoof of the A-Team. Loved it. I absolutely loved that. That's a great music video. And listen, and even at that time, John Cena was a lot more liked. There was a lot more liked. In fact, I remember they did something on SmackDown once. I think it was John Cena did a battle rap against Jericho. I think Jericho was going to perform with Fozzy, and I think Cena did his rap. Kind of remember that. It's on the history show, but it hasn't happened yet this year. But when it came out, I don't know if I bought it, but I definitely downloaded it. I definitely had the songs. I like that there was profanity on the songs. I enjoyed it. Cena was good. It was not embarrassing. That I will say. It was not embarrassing. But I loved Bumpy Knuckles doing Mr. T. That was good shit, man. Very good stuff. All right. So we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes, longer than I even expect. Let's go 10 more minutes and we'll wrap this up. We have another Money in the Bank prediction. Who's sending this prediction? And T. Smitty says Naomi is his pick to win the briefcase. Imagine that nut job on both shows. Vince chose to sell to TKO instead of keeping it in the family. Listen, I know this is unpopular. And yes, Vince turned out to be a perverted old man. No question. We knew one day the sale was going to come. Most of us thought maybe the sale comes after Vince passes away. I personally, I don't like where WWE is headed, but I'm still much happier that it was not sold to Saudi Arabia. Because just imagine you add a whole bunch of propaganda to WWE and you realize how, and here's the thing, would it have even been a publicly traded company? I don't know. If it's owned by a foreign, Saudi Arabia, oof. So we all expected WWE ultimately to be sold. Stock market reacted to it. Wasn't surprising. But unfortunately, the thing is that, and I'm sorry for saying this again, but a shitload of people out there, especially in the media, wrestling media, chose to ignore the last 16 months of the fear that TKO would change WWE into the UFC template and that you didn't have a wrestling mindset running WWE anymore. People just kept saying, oh, Triple H. Triple H, Triple H, Triple H, Triple H. And I swear to God, if anybody's newer on these shows, I swear to God, for 16 months, every time somebody would say Triple H, said, no, it's Ari Emanuel. No one wanted to call out Ari Emanuel. Just Triple H, Triple H, no, it's Ari Emanuel. And that's who is running the ship. And then when Rock came around, oh, no, The Rock. Rock is one of, 12 people on the board of directors. People just chose to ignore it because it wasn't happening. It wasn't transforming. Early on, The Rock is going into business for himself. The Rock is going to ruin Cody's story because The Rock wants to main event WrestleMania. He wants to take on Roman Reigns and he wants to win a championship. Then he wants to retire the championship. And then he's going to go to Hollywood. And then they're going to do a tournament, this and that. And then 3 days later, we want Cody. We want Cody. All manufactured. Kevin, I predicted it. It's proven. There is audio proof. Hashtag we want Cody. And then all of a sudden, remember The Rock wearing that dress shirt? I saw that the fans did not agree with me. So I decided to go with the fans. Now, just pretend you're Mark Shapiro or Ari Emanuel hearing that, and The Rock is saying this. They would turn around and say, Dwayne, I don't give a flying fuck that you heard the fans. No, you answer to us. What happened? The Rock, Dwayne called Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, Nick Khan, everybody else said, listen, The Rock feels that we should listen to the fans. No problem, boss. No problem. We go whatever you say. No problem at all. Everybody believes that that's how it happened. So once Cody finished the story, it took all of the focus off of what we were worried about. We never lost focus. Kept saying, Mark Shapiro, Ari Emanuel, TKO, 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 TKO. Whenever Tony Khan would say, WWE's the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling, why don't you have some balls that call out Ari Emanuel and TKO? They're the ones making the decisions. No, it's easier to just say Triple H and WWE. Wow, Havili, man. Are you drunk tonight? Havili, thank you very much, my friend. He sent in, I don't remember the currency, but I know it's a lot. He sent a 300 spot. Sorry for your loss. Kevin Castle was amazing. I have to put this on the screen. You have to put a little tribute to Kev as well. Absolutely. Havili, it takes a few seconds. Right now, the computer's like a little bit of super shock. Don Stoney says, yeah, Havili, man, should have married you. Seriously. No, thank you, Havili. He sent almost a 2 spot just now. US. I will definitely, I'm waiting. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Wow. And I'm reading what you're saying, and man, that's powerful, man. Havili says, sorry for your loss. Sorry for our loss. Kev was an amazing guy. He lost his mother a couple of months ago. My thoughts on the top 50 greatest WrestleMania matches. What would it take for Triple H to finally get Owen Hart in the WWE Hall of Fame? If Randy Orton didn't get injured, would he have faced Matt Riddle or reunited RK Bro to face the Usos at WrestleMania 39? Okay. As far as Kevin goes, you know, it's still crazy to say that he's gone. It's still crazy. You know, I haven't talked to Trez since we did the show a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to DM her tomorrow, see if she wants to come on Thursday, maybe next Thursday. But, you know, she said something that was so on point that even 2 weeks ago, we felt almost like, okay, Kev's in the hospital right now, or Kev is in rehab. He's somewhere and, you know, we're going to hear him again. Like, just can't believe that he's gone. I am so thankful that that man came into my life. You know, he was a caller to my hotline. You know, don't need to bring up everything. A lot of you know, but he was a caller to my hotline in the late 90s and made some great fucking points. And I would shout out people that would leave comments. And sometimes I would bring up those comments on the hotline report. And then other people would leave messages about other callers leaving comments. And it would get interesting. And then, you know, right around that time when Eddie Guerrero passed, you know, we did a tribute and everybody called the hotline, left message. I still have the audio. Maybe I'll share it one day. It's very sad though. It's about 40 minutes of just people calling literally the day of Eddie passing and crying and leaving, you know, memories literally as it happened. And Kev was one of them. And then we brought Kev on one day as a guest, just talking wrestling, and just clicked. And as I started to have issues with Joey 924, Black Moses was always cool, but Black Moses was going to go wherever Joey 924 went. You know, once I started having issues with a couple other people, one thing I noticed that Kev and I clicked. And, it's crazy. I think it was March 30th, 2005. It's March 30th. Oh, no, March 30th, 2006. I had split with Joey and split with Black Moses. And it was just Kev and I doing shows. Now, Kevin had already been on for a year and a half, maybe a little more. But Kevin and I were now just the two of us. And it was still called the Minority Report. And there's audio. People have heard it. March 30th, 2006, we opened up the show. Welcome everyone to the Minority Report. And you hear Kev say, we need to change that name. I'm like, yeah, we need to change that name. So we did the show. And we had I think 1, 2, 3 flash chat at the time. And when the show was pretty much over, we were asking everyone for names. What should we call the show? By the time we went to sleep, it was the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. So on March 30th, 2006, the show was officially changed to the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. March 30th, 2006. The last ever show Kevin and I ever did together was March 30th, 2025. 19 years to the day. We had done shows together, more than that. But as far as the name, it was 19 years to the day. Never in a million years ever thought that he would be taken this quickly. That's why it's so scary. I've had numerous people pass away since then. On Patreon, because Patreon gets a little bit more personal, I have posted links, obituaries of everybody that has passed away that I've known, even my own cousin, over the last couple of weeks. I have 4 deaths already since Kev passed away. And it's getting more and more personal. And I just had the results for my sleep apnea test last week. And I got to get fitted for a mouthpiece now because I do have mild obstructive apnea. And, there's some things going on. But, Kev, I learned a lot from. I learned, unfortunately, what not to do in some cases. But I know Kev is looking down on everybody, looking down on me, being our guardian angel, definitely out of his pain and his agony, helping with the cats up in heaven. And I miss him. One thing I will say for sure, I know this for a fact. When his father passed away, and he did the show anyway, he didn't want to talk about it. He just wanted to give everybody a great show and laugh, have everybody laugh and escape. When I put my dog to sleep and I was devastated, that day, that Monday, I told Kev, no, I'm going to come on the show. Let's do a show. Let's laugh. Let's give everybody a fun time. Let's escape. No one knew on either time. Even when Kev would have some really horrible episodes with his health recently, he never wanted to bring everybody down. He just always wanted everybody to have a good time. That's why Kevin and I, when we did Monday nights, even those special episodes on YouTube, we always had fun. It was not fake. I always give props to Monty and Afaro. Great show, successful, always looked out for us. But I remember when Monty had said to me like 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, like, why don't you two get back together? You guys do a great show. You don't have to be friends. Just do the show. You got the chemistry and you could take it further. And I said, nah, I can't do the show with somebody I don't like. The same thing with Kev. Like, we had to reconcile our issues and be friends. It's the only way I could do a show with him. And we did. And those 2 years that we did shows leading up to now, there were times that we said we felt these shows were stronger than shows we had ever done before. He was a very good man. And I miss him very much. He's definitely left a huge void, but as I was saying earlier, he would not want us to be down and sad. And I got 20 fucking years of shows that are recorded. His voice will never fade. His voice will never fade. When the John Laurinaitis story broke last week, it put a smile on my face, not just because we were right, but because I was like, we get to share our conversation again. And I put that conversation in the show. Everybody heard Kev again. So there's 20 years of shows that are recorded that no one will ever be able to take away. So even though we won't find new content unless we use AI, which we won't, there's so much that we can revisit. And good man. Now, as far as your wrestling, top 50 greatest WrestleMania matches, you know, WWE obviously every so often will change history and make us interpret things differently. I could understand why, you know, Steve Austin and Bret Hart could be one or two. You know, you go with Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. I mean, we understand why. I don't think I could disagree with many on the top of the list. It's just that when you get to, with all due respect, you get to Ronda Rousey and she's ranked very, very high, and you see, you know, just because something was first time or something that is historic doesn't make it good. You know, that's the thing. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I don't even think Jericho is on this list, or maybe I'm thinking of other lists, but I didn't have much of an issue with the top 50 WrestleMania match. I think number one is Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, right? I think that is number one on the list. Maybe somebody can confirm that in the chat. I'm pretty sure it was Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. Steve Austin, Bret Hart, I believe, was number two. And I think that is very fair. As far as Owen Hart and the WWE Hall of Fame, you know, it's such a hard thing to say, but WWE is going to have to put Owen in against Martha Hart's wishes. Or they're going to have to wait until Martha Hart has a change of view, which I don't think will happen. I think WWE could get sold and resold. I think Triple H could resign. I think anybody that was involved with WWF at the time of Owen Hart's passing could all be gone, and Martha Hart would still feel the same way. Martha Hart does not want Owen Hart's name associated with the letters WWE. And that's why the only way Owen Hart ever goes into the WWE Hall of Fame is against Martha Hart's wishes, or if Martha Hart is no longer on this earth. I know that sounds awful, but the thing that's sad is Bret Hart was Owen Hart's brother. We have the Hart family still alive. And every member of the Hart family on Owen's side could all say, we want Owen in the Hall of Fame. And because Martha says no, he's not in. And here's the thing. You want to respect Owen Hart. You don't want to disrespect him in any way. What happens if Triple H or WWE, TKO Nick Khan, puts Owen Hart in anyway? What happens next? Does Martha Hart dare try to sue? How dare you put my husband in the Hall of Fame? That is a fucking mess. And that may not come off well for Martha Hart at all. And I'm sure WWE knows that, but I think it's controversy they don't want to touch. So as of right now, I don't see Owen Hart going in. WWE would have to put, first of all, Martha Hart would no longer have to be associated with AEW. That's absolutely. I mean, Tony Khan tributes Owen Hart as if they hung out together. You know, it's nice to tribute him, but it's so personal in AEW. It's kind of strange if you really think about it. And Martha Hart, she would have to be totally disassociated with AEW. because Tony Khan would not forgive, and he couldn't say anything. He'd be forced to just take it, but it would make Tony Khan look ridiculous. So Martha Hart would have to be no longer associated with AEW, and WWE would have to make a tremendous contribution to her charity, and maybe even publicly admit something. Otherwise, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. It's sad, but I don't see it. And you asked if Randy Orton didn't get injured at 39, I think it would have been him versus Matt Riddle. We always felt that RK Bro would reunite. At first, we expected when Randy returned, he would just RKO Matt Riddle. Remember, Matt Riddle was still walking around, doing everything, the mannerisms, everything else. And I could see Randy Orton immediately turning heel and attacking him, and that would set up the Mania match. But then RK Bro was so sorely missed. People wanted it so bad that I thought, okay, they would reunite, maybe have a little run again, and then have a falling out that would lead to the WrestleMania match. So I think we would have ended up with a WrestleMania match. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen still. I mean, Matt Riddle and Randy Orton, Matt Riddle's been doing great. Matt Riddle has not had any trouble at all. I could see Matt Riddle back in the WWE. Absolutely. So never say never. Never say never. Matt Riddle has done more in wrestling than I thought he would. And he has been, I wouldn't say crushing it, but he has been doing really, really well. So he's a little more matured. He's still with Misha. They have a family. You know, he's had a child. They've had a child since then. And, you know, he's a couple of years mature. Absolutely could see Matt Riddle back. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And he says, if Legion of Doom didn't leave WWE in 92, would they have faced the Steiners, the Head Shrinkers, or Money Incorporated for the tag titles? Well, it's kind of a lot for me to flash back 33 years in a spur of the moment, but I will tell you, at the time, many of us thought Steiners and Legion of Doom was most likely not going to happen. It's a match that in WCW or NWA, I think that's a match that we would have loved to see happen at that time. But in the WWE, WWF at that time, Legion of Doom were baby faces, hardcore. Steiners were baby faces. They were not going to cross their paths. So Legion of Doom and Steiners was not going to happen. Head Shrinkers was interesting because Head Shrinkers were over. I was a huge fan of Samu, but Head Shrinkers, it felt like something was lacking. I personally think Money Incorporated would have been the money match. To see the Steiners beat the balls off of Ted DiBiase and IRS doing his thing, I think the Steiners beating Money Incorporated would have gotten a much bigger problem. Because remember, you know, Ted DiBiase was already established as a huge heel. IRS was doing a pretty damn good job, you know, getting under people's skin, pay your taxes and everything else. Got to remember, too, around this time, George Bush is president, and he would have that controversy, read my lips, no new taxes. And he fucked up. And then Bill Clinton ended up becoming president. So at this time, doing the IRS gimmick was tremendous. Steiners beating the shit out of Money Incorporated was a match that people would have wanted to see. So Head Shrinkers were great, but the fans did not gravitate towards the Head Shrinkers like they did towards others. And I know you meant WrestleMania 9. I got it, but still, it wouldn't have mattered. Head Shrinkers were great, but they were very gimmicky, and WWF treated them more gimmicky than main eventers, you know, in the tag team division. Not saying that they didn't lead it, but Money Incorporated and Steiner's was the money match. That would have been the money match. So, oh, believe it or not, the tax man could be a baby face when you look at nostalgia. And a lot of people don't dislike Mike Rotunda now for obvious reasons because of what happened to his son. But yeah, as far as an in-ring character, Taxman is never a baby face. Even if he took the money and gave it away to others, wouldn't have worked. Kind of wish Crime Time was around at that time. It would have been great if Crime Time like stole all the IRS's money and then gave it to the fans. That'd be funny. If Crime Time stole his briefcase, took all the money out and gave it to the fans. All right. I think we're going to start wrapping this up. We're at 2 hours and 45 minutes, especially because we don't do synopsis. You know, unless people tune into the show, they can have no idea what we talked about. But I absolutely love the conversation. It's been a lot of fun. Again, you know, Kev exiting abruptly, it's still something to get used to. Monday nights feel so different. But, you know, listen, Kev would want us to keep the DTKC spirit alive. I will continue doing it DTKC style. I know you might get a little sick of my voice from time to time, but, you know, the style never changes, and he will always be celebrated. And especially, you know, with news of today, if we could definitely revisit conversations, absolutely, man. VJ is asking, any chance we see a Brood reunion in AEW? That's definitely possible. I mean, you look at Edge, Adam Copeland doing his thing. Christian, let me put it this way. Gangrel absolutely would be the manager. You do that for a night? You know, this is spur of the moment. It's probably unpopular, but I could see Christian doing to Edge what Triple H did to Shawn Michaels years ago. Does anybody remember the night that they were going to reunite DX for one night? Didn't Triple H turn on Shawn Michaels? So we thought we were getting a DX reunion, and then it turned out to be a swerve. I could see if Edge tries to convince Christian to reunite for a bigger cause, whoever they're feuding with at the time, and you bring back Gangrel. Gangrel is not the most charismatic on the mic, but you somehow convince Christian for one night, for just one night, we bring back the Brood. And they do it, and then you get the intro and everybody gets nostalgia, but then Christian turns on Edge. That's the only thing I could see, because I just think, you know, like, what do you do afterwards? You know, that's why when people were saying earlier about R-Truth, like, okay, I could see that skit in AEW, absolutely. But then what? What do you do the following week? Like, there's too many heels that have power there that are just going to, you know, it's not like the Judgment Day where Damian Priest almost laughs and you see a little bit of chemistry, and, you know, you kind of like fantasize like, oh, maybe they will accept R-Truth. You think you're going to see that with the Death Riders, with the Elite? Like, it just doesn't fit. It wouldn't be good. So I don't see it. I don't see it. But maybe for one night you do the Brood and then you have the Swerve. That's what I would do. So, and Gangrel would love it. Gangrel would love it. But I personally think if you do that, you do it on an episode of Dynamite. If Christian is just going to swerve Edge and turn on him, you do it on a televised show. You don't do it on a pay-per-view. Don't do it on a show where people are paying prime money where some people are actually like looking forward to the nostalgia maybe more than anything else. And then you have that major swerve. I think you piss off a lot of people that way. So, and I appreciate all the kind words, everyone. I see what everybody's writing. You know, I mean, every show is different, but I like the Sundays where you go in pretty much, you have 2-3 things you want to bring up, but everything else is really dictated by all of you out there. So let's take 3 more questions. And then Havili also says, talking about the Steiners, a little follow-up here. Thank you. He says the Steiners didn't leave WWF till 94. They would face the Quebecers at 10 instead of Men on a Mission, who had been NXT champion, Nyx, maybe Bianca, Candice, Carmella, Alexa, Dakota Kai, who had been NXT champion. I don't know who Nyx is. Don't super chat that. Just tell me who you were talking about. Not maybe it couldn't be Nia. Oh, wait a minute. Who would have been the next women's champion? Nyx, Bianca, Candice, Carmella, Alexis, and Dakota. I don't know what that means. Who would have been next? Who would have been next women's champion? Nia. Out of this list, Nia, Bianca, Candice, Carmella, Alexis, or Dakota? Probably go with Bianca. I probably would go with Bianca. Carmella, she was complaining recently. I think she even realized, like, why am I complaining? As far as NXT Women's Championship goes, I think the fans would have definitely liked to see Dakota Kai get it. You know, it's funny. When I was working on the history show for next week, this week coming up is the 10-year anniversary that WWE really started profiling Dakota Kai. And it's pretty interesting to see Dakota Kai from 10 years ago to now. I think the fans would have liked to have seen Dakota Kai. I think they would have liked that. And listen, the Steiners, I know you mentioned the Steiners, would they face Quebecers at 10 instead of Men on a Mission? Monday Night Raw had already started in 1993, and the Steiners were predominantly featured on Monday Night Raw. But the Steiners, their aura really, really got watered down. It didn't feel as special anymore when the Steiners were showing up on Monday Night Raw. I mean, I get it. Monday Night Raw in 1993 was not, it was very gimmicky and almost like Saturday Night's Main Event-ish a little bit. But having them take on the Quebecers, I think would have worked better than Men on a Mission. Men on a Mission were great baby faces. Very corny. Don't get me wrong. I remember their skits in the train, and you have their rapping, and the camera would be sideways, and you turn your head, and then they would turn the other way. Men on a Mission was definitely outdated. I don't know if they were trying to do something similar to Public Enemy, but them being heels was interesting. But the Steiners, it was their time to go. The aura seemed to have been dissipating. And honestly, they got new life when they went back to WCW. So thank you for that. So I would have gone with Dakota Kai of that list. I think fans would have made a very big deal about it. Absolutely. I think that would have helped her a lot more than others. So that Bianca Belair video package that I played on the history show was really, really good. I mean, it's 7 years ago, but it was really, really good. I was like, you could tell WWE knew they had somebody really special on their roster. So Bobby Means, what's up? Thank you for the 5 spot. Why didn't we get Hogan versus Flair at WrestleMania 8? What if Hogan didn't leave in 93? I think it was politics more than anything else. The funny thing is, when Ric Flair showed up, finally, with the real world championship And he started feuding with Piper right away. You know, all of us that started watching WCW, you know, we would get TBS also and everything, but we would watch those companies, you know, on different nights and different styles. You know, Ric Flair was obviously the man. And there was always that fantasy of Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. And the thing is that they had some house shows where Hogan took on Flair. I know we covered it. So, but for some reason, it never turned into a marquee thing. You know, you had teases when Ric Flair brought the chair, you know, ringside, and Undertaker tombstone Hogan on the chair, and there's controversy in that spot too. And you thought, okay, this is going to lead, you know, to Hogan Flair Mania down the line. It just never developed the way it should. Hogan and Flair absolutely should have been a WrestleMania match at that time. No tag team shit. Nobody in anybody's corners. You know, no special advisors. Should have just been Hogan, Flair, dream match. But for some reason, you know, I mean, listen, I think the problem was this also. This is what I think the problem is too. When Ric Flair showed up with the real world championship, I think the original idea was, here's Flair with his belt, and ultimately here's Hogan with his belt. And even if neither had their belts anymore, it's almost like for bragging rights, who's the better champion? And the problem is, you know, Ric Flair was threatened with lawsuits, and they had to pixelate the championship, and then they had to take it off of television. And then when Ric Flair won the championship at the Royal Rumble, you know, what did Ric Flair say? This is the only championship that matters. And suddenly, Ric Flair is the World Wrestling Federation champion, and it's no longer the outsider with the outside championship versus the man representing the World Wrestling Federation for X number of years. I honestly think that that's the case. I really believe it. Because at that time, it was a huge fantasy match. And yeah, we got it on some house shows, and we did get it on home video. But for some reason, it never developed to WrestleMania. And that sucked. It definitely sucked. And listen, when Hogan went to WCW, it was a big deal. I remember the parade. I remember what they did in Florida. But the problem is, if I remember correctly, Hogan's first match was against Flair for the championship. And all of us were like, ain't no way Hogan is going to lose in his first match. You know, and they tried to, did they bring in Mr. T for that first time? But they did a little nostalgia. I know ultimately they brought in Shaq also. Maybe I'm mixing the two, but I know they brought in a little nostalgia also. But yes, okay, so I was right, Ramshead. It was both. It was Shaq and Mr. T. I remember it. But still, it didn't matter who you surrounded Hogan with. It felt like, yeah, he's going to come in and he's going to be champion, and there goes Ric Flair's reign. And they brought in Muhammad Ali too. Yeah. I mean, it was spectacle, and it was a big deal, and the fans ate it up. But for all of us where WWF was our number one company to watch because we lived in the Northeast, you know, just never got it in the WWF like we should have. And WCW one just felt too watered down. So, all right, I'm going to start wrapping this up. Navili says, besides Ortiz and Santana, what other tag teams should have won AEW tag team championships? And his favorite ECW theme song, Enter the Sandman or Natural Born Killers. And yeah, I did see what you wrote earlier with Nia Jax. I'd still go with Dakota Kai. Very, very well liked. Definitely could have helped her resume. Definitely would have gotten her that, established her. So I think Dakota could have needed it more than that. as far as AEW goes, like looking at the tag team division, like everybody's gotten gold. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, everybody who was on that food chain for the most part, even you look at teams like the Acclaimed and Private Party and others, like at some points we all thought, okay, this team should get it. Private Party should get it. Oh, this team's got momentum. This team's got momentum. And then they wouldn't get it. But then sometimes a team would get it at a time that it just didn't feel like it worked, clicked. Santana Ortiz may be the only team, really, the only true tag team that truly should have gone further and did not. The Lucha Bros, they got opportunity. They had runs. So some runs were not very good. But honestly, not many people, let me put it this way. If you're going to talk about championships in AEW on who should have been champion by now, a lot of the names that I choose are names that probably, based on television, shouldn't have gotten the championship yet, but should have been pushed to it. Wardlow comes to mind. Hobbs comes to mind. Like, those are two examples to me that by now, AEW should have pushed them in a way where they should have been world champion by now. And they didn't. Some people at this time, it was a year or two ago, you look back at Ricky Starks. There was a point where you felt something was really working for Ricky Starks, and oh my God, he feels like on the same level as MJF. And AEW is like, nah. Next thing you know, Ricky Starks is involved with Jericho. And it's funny to look back at a lot of news sites at that time, and they're like, well, maybe Ricky Starks, maybe this is fine. I think it was a year ago this week or 2 years ago this week. Was it 2 years ago this week? I think it might have been 2 years ago this week that Ricky Starks lost to Jay White. And Dynamite, I think, goes off the air. And Ricky Starks is in the ring still, and the fans were going nuts for him. And at that time, people were like, okay, they finally going to put Ricky Starks back in the program with MJF, and it didn't happen. Didn't happen. So as far as tag teams go, I don't think anybody thinks like any tag teams should have won it that didn't. Santana Ortiz is an excellent choice. But outside of them, any other tag teams that didn't get it, they never got pushed in a way where they should have. There's been many times where teams were getting pushed and then they just didn't get the spot. There were times where FTR should have absolutely won the championships and they didn't. And then they would win at a different time and it just didn't feel like it would have mattered as much. Sometimes you got to go with the vibe and it's got to feel organic. And a lot of times they don't go that route. So, and he says, how come we never got a version of the Midnight Express in the WWE? It was very Southern. It was very Southern. When we got Bombastic Bart and Bodacious Bob, it felt like a mockery. When Jim Cornette comes out there, it felt like a mockery. Who's another team? Give you another good team. Who's a team that I really, really enjoyed that went to the WWF and it never really worked? The Heavenly Bodies. Heavenly Bodies. Southern wrestling, if it felt too Southern, unless that was part of your gimmick, it didn't work in the WWF. It just because, that was one of the problems with TNA for a little while. It felt like a Nashville company. Believe it or not, Bischoff, even though Bischoff talks out of his ass a lot just for publicity and ad revenue, he does bring up a lot of good points too. And one of the stigmas, especially with WCW, is to get the stigma off of them that they were a Southern company. You wanted to attract all. And, the thing is like the Heavenly Bodies, they felt like a Southern tag team. And with WWF, wrestlers that felt really Southern, they put dumb gimmicks on. Tracy Smothers was awesome, God rest his soul. But they gave him Freddie Joe Floyd. The Heavenly Bodies, the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. It wouldn't have felt the same because WWF was more Northeastern. And, the best way I could describe it is this. The 1980s, even maybe early 90s, if I traveled down to Nashville, Tennessee, or I traveled to Texas, probably would hear country music everywhere I go. But if you're in the 80s to early 90s and you come to New York, you would have heard a shitload of rap. You went to California, you probably would have heard a shitload of rap. So it really, a lot of the culture is different. And a lot of the Southern wrestlers never really fit in the WWF unless, Jeff Jarrett might be the best example of one that had succeeded, but they had to overblow it with the glasses and the country hat and the JEFFJARRETT. And as far as my favorite song of the two, I think Sandman's entrance is the greatest in ECW history. I loved Natural Born Killers, loved listening to the song during New Jack's matches or the Gangsters. But that's not a song that I could actually rap back. I'm a fat white guy, so some of the lyrics for some of my favorite hip-hop songs, I sound like an idiot rapping them back. Especially when I used to listen to Public Enemy. Me and my friends would be hanging out, and we're starting to do the lyrics, and then you hear a bunch of white Italian guys going, "Black Militant!" And then just be like, oh. So for me, Sandman's song, I'm tired of Enter the Sandman. I mean, I've heard it a trillion times, but Sandman's entrance was great. Listen, they're very lucky they never got in trouble for Sandman pouring beer down some people's mouths that may not necessarily have been 21 at the time. So my favorite rap group of all time is Run DMC. Those motherfuckers got me in trouble back in the day. They didn't get me in trouble, but Run DMC will always be my favorite hip-hop group of all time. Always loved Run DMC. First time I heard them was in 1983. There was an old club in New York called the Funhouse. And at the time, me and my friends, we would hang out at Juniper Park. We would hang out in Woodhaven, Queens. And we would get like these mixtapes. And we would sometimes get tapes from, like a lot of freestyle raps, people in clubs. But the funny thing is like when somebody would record somebody in a club, they didn't hook it up to a professional mixer. So like me, I have a mixer here. I could literally plug two wires, get a cassette tape plugged in, and record hip hop. And it would sound perfect. Back in the day, you would take like, I don't know, I don't have any props here, but you would take like, let's say this is a tape recorder. You would like hit play and record on a tape recorder and put this next to the speaker and just hold it like this. And then you take the cassette tape and you bring it to everyone. So someone gave us a cassette tape of Run DMC at the Funhouse. And it was amazing. And then that song, Here We Go, they ended up using the Funhouse version. So that was the first time I ever heard Run DMC. But, there was so many other rappers, hip hop artists at the time that were undiscovered yet. And, that's why I always brought up in the past, I had the privilege of going to Fresh Fest 84. It was at the Nassau Coliseum. We went in 1984 and saw, Houdini. I think LL Cool J was sitting front row. Run DMC, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five. I went. And what was so cool about it was, I was with a whole bunch of white Italian guys, but we went to the building. Every culture was there. Black people, white people, Asian people, Spanish people, Puerto Ricans, men, women, girls. Nobody had a problem with each other. Just everybody got together at an amazing time. I used to have the t-shirt still. Fresh Fest 84. I went and it was amazing. So, but Run DMC was always my favorite. Always was. So that's why it's funny years later. Sometimes someone will bring up a group, even from the 90s, and I'll start throwing lyrics out from like Tribe Called Quest or, others. And people will be like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, so, all right, guys, I'm going to jet. So I want to thank you all for a tremendous Sunday night. I mean, this was great. My ass hurts. When my ass hurts, that's when I know we had a spectacular show. Really, I mean that seriously. When my ass hurts, that's when I know I'm sitting a little bit too long, and had a great episode tonight. So I want to thank you all, for everybody, for your generosity. Havili and everybody else, I can't thank you enough. Believe me, it helps pay the bills, it helps us grow. And I know some people are a little unhappy with this, but the history show is a labor of love. This past week's history show was probably my favorite episode so far this year. And trust me, if you listen to the final 2 hours of the episode, you know why. They are a crazy amount of time to work. But I promise myself, I start something, I finish it. So we're doing a whole year of the history shows. We're already up to week 22. This week will be 23. When we are done with the history shows, the end of December, we don't do history shows again next year. That will be a tremendous amount of time free, opened up. And I plan on doing a lot more, especially on YouTube. More, because everybody interacts together. We have a tremendous chat room. But also just to get the word out a little bit more. Because there's so many things, and I'm not saying this to be cocky, but there's so many things that I know you and I talk about. Things that are positive, things that are negative, things that are controversial. But there's so many things that we talk about a year, 2 years before anybody else. And because I don't put up individual clips, a lot of people never hear about them. Some of the topics I love revisiting, some I don't. I can't tell you how many people in the last week reached out to me and said, hey, did you hear Kevin Nash's podcast? And I said, not yet. I tune into Kevin almost every week. And he said, Kevin is now claiming that he thinks that Tony Khan is autistic. And it's getting a lot of press. I'm like, that's interesting, because you and I have been saying for about a year and a half, 2 years, that I think Tony Khan legitimately has autism. A lot of people don't even realize the term autism and the ties to Will Ospreay. Don't know what I'm talking about? Google it. So maybe that's why I kind of give Will Ospreay a little bit of a pass with some of the things that he says. But, we talk about things well before anyone else. And the TKO stuff that's going on right now, it's earth-shattering for a lot of people. For some people, it's like blindsided by it. But realistically, on what we do here and what I was doing with Kevin, we've been prepping for this for a year and a half. We were just hoping to be wrong, but they've been telling us. Just a lot of people just chose not to listen, and now it's starting to develop. And again, you see what happened today. In the big scope of things, R-Truth being released is not major. Beloved guy, no question. But that should be a wake-up call that Anybody is replaceable. And this is not a wrestling mindset. It's not your uncle's WWE anymore. And as time goes by, it's going to hit more. And then you're going to realize, what other options do I have? AEW, Indies, TNA, NXT. Then you realize you're kind of trapped. You're kind of trapped. So you either got to try to make the best of it, or you start drifting away from wrestling. And unfortunately, people do drift away from wrestling. GCW would be considered part of Indies. So, I don't know. We will talk about it tomorrow night, right after Raw. Once again, this is the thumbnail preview for tomorrow. Listen, I get it. Vince was out of touch, but I think most of us agree that if Vince McMahon still owned WWE and not TKO Group Holdings, chances are things would be looking a little bit different. Not just the ring and the apron with less advertisers, but I think just the overall aura of WWE. I think the number of house shows would be different. I think ticket prices would be different. I think shit would be a boatload different than it is now. But unfortunately, we cannot change history. And listen, I will tell you this in closing. Anybody in the wrestling world that is telling you Vince McMahon is looking to buy back WWE is lying to you. Is lying to you. Number one, they don't know anybody. I don't care if they wore a Janelle Grant costume and showed up naked at Vince's house. Please, I'll give you my body. Just tell me, do you want to buy TKO again? None of these people know. And they ain't nobody behind the scenes in WWE that knows Vince is going to tell anybody in the wrestling podcast world, yeah, Vince might be buying it. And you know what? Fuck you to all of these people that are now reporting that Vince McMahon just set up a corporation, an investment corporation. That was done in November. And people are now trying to make it seem like, oh, he just bought this corporation because he's trying to set up or put himself in line to buy TKO. Anybody that is telling you is lying. And why are they lying? Because nobody in the wrestling world outside of maybe John Cena and The Undertaker, maybe Triple H, that if Vince was seriously thinking about buying TKO, that anybody would know. No one would fucking know. No podcaster out there would know. And remember, most of these people also were saying that Vince McMahon was going to set up his own wrestling company. Some of them even said that Vince McMahon may even consider talking to Jeff Jarrett about setting up a company. These are people who have been talking out of their ass, trying to get ad revenue any way possible. And they always use my sources in the wrestling industry. My friend, that's such an easy way out. Anybody that uses that terminology, take note. Take note. When they do report something legit and 100% accurate, at the time they get it, take note they don't ever use that same terminology. Breaking news. My sources tell me that Evolution 2 will happen in Connecticut. No, they'll say, my sources close to the situation. Believe. When they start adding a whole bunch of words to it, don't believe them. Nobody in the podcast world knows what Vince McMahon is doing. They don't know. Bullshit. My friends, I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Enjoy Monday Night Raw. We'll see where everything goes. We will definitely be doing Money in the Bank predictions. I just can't believe it got here so quickly. It's going to be kind of hard to do because don't they have to do a qualifying match on Friday? So we're going to have to probably even do the qualifying match prediction and the outcome. I don't think the qualifying match is going to change my predictions for Money in the Bank. I have a good idea who I think is going to win. So, yeah, we could definitely we could definitely do predictions tomorrow. So I'll be live in our Discord channel, DTKCDiscord.com, www.dtkcdiscord.com. I'll be live right after Raw, like 5 minutes after Raw. We won't have to wait long. And we'll definitely get into everything. We'll talk a little bit more about today's news, get into if anybody else gets released in the next 24 hours. And we'll talk Raw, we'll talk Money in the Bank, get into some wrestling news, talk a little bit more about Mariah May, and whatever else. So be well, everybody. Much love. And I catch you all in the next one. Be well.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the hosts. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.